Again, St. James North, good night, comrades of the Barbados Labour Party. Good night, all residents of Husbands, Year Road, Prescott Road. Good evening. It is great to see so many proud and passionate people out here tonight. We are just days away from the May 21st by-election, and this is our moment, St. James North. This is our time to stand up, show up, and send a clear message. We're not here for any talk. We are here for action, for a real leadership and future that works for all of St. James North members. So let's get fired up tonight as we have a lot of great speakers coming at you tonight, along with our candidate, Mr. Chad Blackman. Tonight, we would like to introduce one of Mr. Chad Blackman's longtime friends, Mr. Julian Arthur. There's no one better or no person better to speak to you tonight at this meeting and introduce or to let you know about our candidate, Mr. Chad Blackman. So what I want you to give him a big warm welcome to the stage, Mr. Julian Arthur.
We going big, we going big, we going big. Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action. We going big with Chad Blackman. Big man, big vision.
Good evening all. Good evening, St. James North. I hear you. Good evening, St. James North. Are you ready? Are you ready? It gives me great pleasure here tonight to speak to you on behalf of not only a colleague, on behalf of not only a comrade, but on behalf of my friend, Mr. Chad Blackman. I've had the opportunity in the past to speak on many platforms in the North, coming from St. Peter. I'm your neighbor, just north of you. And on those occasions, I would have spoken to matters at a national level. Tonight is different because I'm speaking about a friend. And this gives me the most pride and joy I have ever had in speaking on a platform. So give me a clap. I give Chad a clap for running for this beautiful constituency in St. James North, man. And tonight, as I mentioned, I'm not going to speak to matters of national development. We're not going to speak to how our economy has rebounded after those 10 unsavory years and that we are in a more stable place now than we were before. But I'm going to speak about Chad, the man. And in giving some thought to tonight's presentation, I decided to use the letters of his name to highlight the characteristics of this individual, just so you could get an understanding of Chad the man. So for C, he's charismatic and caring. H, he's humble. A, he's accessible, accountable, and approachable. And D, he is dedicated. He's a dedicated person. So let me start with the charismatic bit first, because I won't get into detail on all of these. And I'm going to beg the chairpersons to allow me a little more time if I don't get all my points over. But under the point of charismatic, I am certain many of you in St. James North would have seen him in his walking arounds from last year, well, for a year now, that you know that this is a charismatic individual. Some people say that he's like a big teddy bear. He's a lovable man. Chad himself also is a caring individual. And when I say caring, I could draw reference from within recent times, like last week, Friday and Monday, you will see Chad, because I get the opportunity to walk with Chad throughout this constituency on numerous occasions. But last week, Friday and Monday, just before the 11+ exam, Chad took the opportunity to pause from the campaign I want you to understand how this individual is caring, how Chad is a caring individual. He paused from the election campaign to go to 4 primary schools to deliver the 11 plus booklets to these children. No, he did not have to do it. He could have sent the packages by someone to these schools, but Chad said, no, I have to go myself. And he did not only go to the school and give them the package, but Chad made it an important point to speak to every one of those 11 plus students by themselves. He personally gave them the package and gave them instructions on either to have a good night's rest, take it easy, relax, take it slow. And each child that came up to Chad, when they came up to him, I mean, he's a very imposing figure. He's a big guy. The children will look down and not look up. And Chad has this way about him that he's trying to instill in the children to make eye contact. Chad is this is a point that he made from the time he became the Minister of Educational Transformation, that we have always told children, be quiet, don't talk, say less. But then when they become 16, 17, 18, we try to encourage the children to be more confident. Chad wants to reverse that, to have the children more confident at a younger age. So I could tell you, when we were at those primary schools, each one of the children that got that booklet from Chad, and Chad gave them that personal greeting, some that were looking down, he made them look up. On the point of being humble, Chad is such a humble individual. His humbleness was grounded from 2 wonderful parents that are here tonight, Jackie and Delvin Blackman. I want you to give them a round of applause, because without them and them instilling this humbleness in Chad, he would not be the individual that he is today. So Jackie and Delvin, y'all have did a wonderful job. And he continues to look up to y'all, even at this age, he's at 42. You all have done a fantastic job. But on the point of humbleness too, when I go around canvassing with Chad, Chad is so humble that he does not even speak about his accomplishments to anyone. Are you aware, and I can take the opportunity to try to speak to them for him? I mean, I'm not asking his permission, and he may not like it. But do you know that when Chad was the ambassador to the UN, the World Trade Organization, and the World Health Organization, he was the president of the G77 and China as ambassador, a little boy that born and raised in Brayton St. Philip, grew up in Vauxhall, but got heritage from the north. This little boy up in Geneva representing Barbados as the president of the G77 plus China. And here done there, when he went on to become the senior advisor at the ILO, Chad had responsibilities for the Caribbean. He had responsibilities for Africa, for Latin America, for external affairs, as well as other departments. But Chad at at the ILO, which is the International Labour Organization, was not a little poo-poo boy walking the corridors. Chad was reporting directly to the boss. But Chad, in his comings and goings, is so humble, he don't even mention those accomplishments. Whenever you see Chad interacting with persons in the constituency, he's always looking intently at them, listening keenly, feeling their pain, and looking at how best or better to make them improve themselves. The humbleness of this man. I mean, do you all know that Chad could speak 5 languages? Anybody know Chad could speak 5 languages? He speaks English, German, Spanish, French, and a little Kasiaba efficacy. He tongue sharp, so he will release it only if provoked. A Kasiaba, well, be close to him when somebody provoke him. But on the point of accessibility, On the point of approachable, now Chad is 6'4", weighing a lot versus a little. Amin Gorg would call he a Wabatana man. Chad is probably one of the most approachable people that you have ever seen. Chad is so accessible that everywhere we go, he does ring in people's ears. If you want to reach me, call my cell number, 266-7649. How I know that number? I just say every single day, everywhere we go. And when Chad passes out the number, he's asked you for your number. Store the number and send you a message. This is me. This is Chad. He is that sort of person that, when you try to call him, you may not get through, but send you a WhatsApp, send you a voice note, you're guaranteed to reach him. He could be in meetings, that's why he can't answer the call, but WhatsApp him. He is that sort of accessible. And he's also accountable. 2 nights ago, Chad stood before you all at the launch meeting and stated that he has a weight problem. But he wants you, the constituents, the residents of St. James North to know and to join in his weight loss journey. He started by drinking a lot of water, thanks to the campaign manager insisting that he cannot drink nothing else but water. He started walking a lot, and he's also changed his eating habits. When he come in here tonight, you should see a little slimmer Chad Blackman that you saw a few weeks ago. He telling me nowadays that I get the wrong shirts for him. But the shirts that I got 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago was fitting a little more tighter. But you will see that Chad has put himself vulnerable to you. Non-communicable diseases is one of the major issues that we have as a society, not only in Barbados, but globally. But what Chad has made that statement out in public to say is that he acknowledges his weight is an issue and he wants to do better. So very soon you might hear of community activities, wellness days, walks, where you, the residents of this wonderful constituency, could join him on his weight loss journey, help to encourage him, because as you would know, progress is not only going forward, but progress is not stopping even when you face insurmountable challenges. So I'm begging you, the residents of St. James North, help him on his journey, take him along with you, encourage him. But more importantly, come May the 21st, 2025, I want you to go in your numbers and vote for Chad Blackman. Do not sit back and say that this constituency is safe. This constituency is good. All votes matter. From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Go in your numbers. And if you know somebody who want help, go and get them. Bring them out. Let them vote. Vote early. Get the votes in. And let me start to party up in here, man. I'm going to tell you. And if you know Chad, everyone hit two pieces of steel together, he can start a dance book there too. He like a piece of dancing. But do not take it for granted. Do not take it for granted, because all votes matter. On the final point of being dedicated, I will just take another point as a subcategory to this point and state that Chad has a unique willingness to serve. People say all the time that they're willing to serve, but let me explain how much Chad is willing to serve. At the tender age of 14 years old, Chad would have been introduced to the Barbados Labour Party politics by his father, Delvin. And from since then, everything went downhill. Chad spoke, eat, sleep, breathe politics. So much so when he was at school in Christchurch Foundation, some of his colleagues, Imran and Corey, would say, well, Chad, we use more B than Tom Adams. He would go the length and breadth speaking about the Barbados Labour Party, correct, and your daughter too as well, walking those corridors at Christchurch Foundation. But what I mean about his willingness to serve, Chad has started, and you all know his history. He was the president of the League of Young Socialists. He served as the CARICOM Youth Ambassador. He went to Geneva when the Barbados Labour Party won in 2018 to be the representative in Geneva to the United Nations World Trade Organization and the World Health Organization, of which he spent 4 years as ambassador. So good was his job as ambassador that the International Labour Organization, and Colin Jordan could testify to this, the #1 organization for labor globally, sought and got Chad to work with them. And Chad went on to the International Labour Organization as a senior advisor to the Director General, which means Chad reported directly to the boss. Chad has so much benefits and privileges associated with that job. And when our party leader, Mayor Motley, went to Chad in January of 2024 and said, "Big guy, I want you to come home." Chad, without even missing a beat, released those benefits and said, "I'm coming home tomorrow." What do you think about this man as a willingness to serve? And these are things that got to be talked about. Because as you know, when you are reporting at an international labor organization, an international body of that magnitude, and you are getting those benefits, and you decide to give up on those benefits to come back and represent the people of a country, and with your help, come May the 21st, 2025, you, the residents of St. James North, to represent this beautiful constituency as your next MP, that is what I consider a willingness to serve. Ladies and gentlemen, come May the 21st, don't take it for granted. Do not stay home. Come out and vote in your numbers. I will leave you with this final analogy where we oftentimes say, and I mean, enough of you out here, so got me driver's license. We learn to drive, we went in and take the test, and then it's only after you get your license that honestly you now start to learn to drive. So St. James North, I'm begging you, or asking you, come May the 21st and beyond, give Chad that driver's license for this constituency to take this car beyond May 21st and take this car down the road for better and beyond. Thank you, St. James North. Good night, and God bless you.
Chad, Chad, Chad. We going big. We going big. We going big. Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action. We going big with Chad Blackman. Big man, big vision, big passion. We going big with Chad Blackman. His talent and ability.
Good night, St. James North. Good night, Barbados Labour Party family. Good night. Our next speaker tonight is Dr. Ramel Springer, Member of Parliament for St. Andrew and Parliamentary Secretary in the MTW with responsibility for water resources. St. James North, welcome to the stage, Dr. Ramel Springer.
Good night, everyone. Good night, St. James North. Less than 45 minutes ago, I was in the field. I was out there canvassing for Mr. Blackman. I was engaging people, going from door to door, asking for support for a young man that I know can offer proper representation for to this constituency. I am proud to report that 9 out of 10 houses that I visited all had something positive to say about the young man. Now, that's not to say that we should take anything for granted. That's not to say that we have this thing wrapped up. but simply to tell you guys that I believe strongly in my heart that all is well. And why should it be? We have a candidate who has proven time and time again that he is about the small man. And even though he represented Barbados at the highest level, and you would have heard about that here tonight, you would have heard that he was ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations. You would have heard that he was advisor to the IOL, to the Director General of the IOL. You heard those things. And you might have also heard that he was president of the G77, that group of 77 small developing nations. So even at that level, the big man was looking out for the small man. And he continues today. Even at that level, his role was looking out for the small developing countries like Barbados. Some were not very small, but they're still developing. They're at a very tender stage. And that is what he did there. And he returned here to Barbados to continue a similar line of work. But this time he's looking out for the good people of St. James North. And let me tell you, I told him this last week. I'm from the constituency of St. Andrew. And even though St. Andrew may seem far away from where we are now, the fact is we share a border. We share a border. And before, for the 3 years that I was MP, I had a wonderful relationship with the previous MP, the previous representative. And I hope going forward I can have a similar relationship with Mr. Charles Blackman, because I'm sure that he'll be MP, he'll be member of Parliament come May 21st. No doubt about it. Now, as I said, I came directly from the field here. And in speaking to people, those who have met him already, everybody had one thing to say. That man is down to earth. That man is approachable. That man is relatable. I like that man. I will vote for that man. I will give that man a chance. I know how it feels to go there as a new candidate just 3 years ago asking for a chance. And I know what I had to do. I know some of the things that I did. And I can already see young Chad Blackman doing those things. He's willing to go into the house and sit down and have that conversation, that difficult conversation with parents, with single mothers, with fathers who are unemployed. He's not going to send somebody. He comes. Every single person that told me that they want to see Chad Blackman, before he can get back in good, Chad Blackman was in a car heading back to those houses to speak to those persons personally. Now let me tell you something about being an MP. It's a hard job. It's an extremely difficult, thankless job. And when I see a young man put himself and give himself to people as service to people, and is willing to walk the extra mile and go and visit you at your home, and you can just make a simple telephone call or can note your concern. It tells me what I need to know about that man's character. It tells me that he's going to be a hands-on MP. He's going to be the type of MP that you can call at any hour of the day, any hour of the night, and he will be there. He will answer his phone. He will respond to your calls. He will visit you in your homes. Because that's what I've seen so far. Now, I don't want to dwell in any way on what would have happened in the past. But when I was out there in the field, I met persons that told me that other people came looking for them. People in yellow shirts. And it's funny that both candidates are somehow associated with education. But I had to remind a young man tonight, what the other side did as it relates to education. Oftentimes, we talk about what happened in 2015. We talk about what happened when they were in government, when they took away that free tuition for students. And parents had to determine if they're going to stay in university or if their children are going to stay in university. And let me tell you something. I was a lecturer at university at that time. I was a young lecturer at the time. And what people don't know, what people don't talk about, is that when all the students went home, a lot of the lecturers went home. So a lot of people became unemployed as well. So even though I enjoyed teaching, I was one of the persons who had to go home. Now I'm saying my colleague over there tell me too, that he had to go home as well. So a lot of people lost their work. A lot of the young lecturers under that particular administration. And I was a lecturer. I taught a class. There were 54 students on average in my class. 54, between 50 and 54. Made up of all persons of all walks of life. Young people, persons who were middle-aged, persons who were retired. But these were persons who felt that, you know what? A, I have to get that certification so I can move on in my job. B, I didn't get the opportunity to study when I was young, so I'm taking the opportunity now that I'm older, I have more time on my hand. And C, persons who just wanted to improve themselves for their own self-development. So the courses consist of all kinds of people. And when that tuition fee was introduced, when persons had then to look for $30,000 to pay for a course that hitherto was free at the point of delivery, I saw that class went from 54 students of mothers, single parents, fathers, teenagers. I saw that class went from 54 students to 13 students the next year. 13 students were in the class when they went back the next year. So all kinds of people left university. So people who would have had the opportunity to learn and develop themselves here in this country, the only opportunity that they would have had, it was taken away by that government, by that administration. And now they want to come and talk to you about education. They can't. How can they? And when we came to office, first thing we did, remove that tuition fee. And quick so, we saw the numbers start to come back to the university. And believe me, in this world that we live in, that university education is critical. It's important. And if you have to live in a world where you have to determine for the time your child is 10 or 11, that you have to look to put on a loan like in North America, as developed as they are, you have to start putting on a loan for until your child is 9 and 10 and 11. So when the time for they go to college, they have the money. When we here in small Barbados, even if you can afford it, we try to afford it. We put the resources in place as the government to ensure that young people in this country can have an education from nursery all the way up to PhD. When I tell my colleagues over in the islands, in Trinidad and Jamaica and St. Kitts and Antigua, that I had a degree, I got a degree, 3 degrees. A first degree, a second degree, and a third degree. All free of cost. Can't believe it. Cannot understand how we as a people are so fortunate. And it's not that, you know. It's a sacrifice that a government is willing to make for its people. A sacrifice that this administration was willing to make for its people to the tune of over $100 million. They were not willing to do it. They were willing to climb up the ladder and kick it down so that small people and poor people children cannot get education in this country. And now they want to come and tell us about education. They should stay far, 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 far away from people's children and from people's schools. Because there's nothing they can tell us about education that we want to hear. Nothing. And we have a candidate now who's not just talking, he has a vision. He was not even yet the MP, not even yet the representative, and he's talking about a technological hub. He's seeing the importance of technology. And in this world that we're living in, technology is paramount. You cannot function without technology. And we look at technology in all kinds of areas, because this constituency is not, and he said it, it's very diverse. it's urban, it's rural, it's coastal. And he's looking at technology that will impact every group in St. James North. And I'm sure what starts here will extend into St. Andrew, will extend into St. James Central, will extend into St. James South, will extend into St. Peter, and also St. Lucie, St. Joseph, all across Barbados, but it's going to start here. And I'm glad that Chad Blackmore was the one who came up with this vision for a tech hub, to look at technology, how it could be used to improve farming, how it could be used to improve educational programs, how it could be used to improve the coastal zone. These are the things that we want. This is the kind of mindset, the kind of thinking that we want to advance this country. Not coming around criticizing everything that you see. There's no progress in criticism. We want a candidate that's going to come with fresh ideas, energized, and willing to work. And I think that is what we have. In fact, I know that is what we have in Chad Blackman. He's not just talk. And what I've been hearing from them is talk. And talk is cheap. But education is expensive. But lack of education is horrible. Now, I just want to speak briefly about some of the work that we would have done in this constituency. I can tell you, Chad, his predecessor, was very, very determined. I know that Chad is going to be just as determined because he's not yet the MP, and he's still already reached out to me with a list of roads and a list of drainage that he wants done. And this constituency was the one that benefited from the most roads. We don't get the most roads by just sitting down and hoping that you get them. It requires writing, calling, visiting, all these things that were done for this constituency so that you can have those 12, 14, 15, 16 roads that you got. And there's still more roads that will be done in this constituency. So this constituency is a blessed constituency in that regard. I also know you have challenges as it relates to drainage and flooding in the constituency. And we have already put measures in place to ensure that we address the drainage, we address the flooding. We just recently passed in the lower house, the stormwater management bill that will look at development, at drainage at the stage of development, so that when persons develop property, they take careful consideration into how they dispose of the water, how they drain that water. So you will not have situations occurring again where development upstream or hill impact negatively on persons living downstream. These are the types of things that we have to root out. And these are the types of conversations that we're having right now with Mr. Blackman to ensure that measures are put in place to protect those places at low-lying areas like down here from flooding. We've been working hard to ensure that the areas that are dark, we have some lights that we got from China. I want to thank the government of China for that donation of lights to ensure that the dark areas, the highway 2A, which is just at the hill, been dark for years, that highway is lit. But these are things that ensure safety to people. When people feel safe on the roads, people feel safe in their homes because it's well lit. Communities that are dark, we are also going to look at lighting up some of those areas as well. This constituency is blessed. I know that in the same tenacity that I would have seen with the previous representative, I know that I would see that in Chad. That is real representation. Now, as I close, I want to just remind persons how important this by-election is that's coming up on May 21st. Because there's still persons in their homes who, believe it or not, are not aware that we have a upcoming by-election. There's still persons I met yesterday who discovered for the first time that there's a by-election in this constituency, which says to me that we still have to go out there and do some more work. We cannot assume that we have it wrapped in the bag. And I believe every speaker will remind you tonight that we cannot assume anything. As long as somebody else's name is on the ballot paper, that person, theoretically, in this case, maybe not realistically, but theoretically, can beat us. So we have to do everything in our power to ensure that we work as hard as possible, even if it means working all the way out to 7 o'clock, which is the time I start working tonight for Chad, to run here, to speak here, to continue working for him here. If it means that we have to do that, we have to go to every house. We have to knock on every door. When we see them on the street, we got to stop them, intercept them, and tell them, listen, you live out here? Excuse me, you live out here? If yes, then we need your information, and we need you to vote for Mr. Chad Blackman. Cannot relax, cannot sit on our laurels. It's not yet in the bag. Because there are people out there who still don't know. And if there are people out there who don't know that there's a by-election in this constituency, then there are people out there who still are unsure as to who to vote for. And on the day, they may get it and vote for anybody. Or they may listen to anybody. And we want them to listen to somebody, that they listen to one of us. Somebody in a red shirt who represents this party. We cannot take anything for granted. Yes, we are out here in our numbers. But there are far more people in their homes right now listening to us. There are people in their homes right now sleeping. But we'll still come out and vote on May the 21st. And we have to ensure that they know where to place that X. So we have to work. We have to work. I have decided that if I have to work every day from morning to night to ensure that we get out the vote, that I will do it. I will hope that you all here tonight can pledge that you will do the same thing for Mr. Blackman. Because we have to win. This is a crucial election. This election will determine going forward the state of play in this country. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we realize what we have to do as a party. As I said, it means knocking on every door. It means intercepting every individual you see as they get out the bus or as they go to their car. When you see boys on the field playing, you go and talk to them. You go to the side, call them one side and talk to them. Every first-time voter, make sure you talk to them. Even if it takes you half an hour to get to them, you talk to them. Because they don't know. They don't know the difference between us and them yet. We have to explain to them that there's a marked difference between what they claim to represent and what we represent. We're not the same. And those first-time voters will not know that. We have to tell them that. We have to hold their hands. And they're going to resist you. They're going to tell you, man, about now, so I don't vote. All one is the same. No. We're not the same. They are not like us. They're not. They're not like us. So as I said, as a rapper, I just want to encourage you to go out there and work for Chad. Those persons in their homes, St. James North people, please come out on May 21st. Give your vote for real representation. Give your vote for a person who will show up, who will speak up, who will hold your hand, who will work with you, and who will build St. James North and create a constituency that you can be proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Vote Chad Blackman.
We going big. We going big. We going big. Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action. We going big with Chad Blackman. Big man, big vision, big passion. We going big with Chad Blackman. His talent and ability.
St. James North is anything that you can take away from Dr. Ramel Springer's speech tonight is that we need to still let everybody know that on May 21st, we're going to the polls and vote for Chad Blackman. All right? So if anything you don't remember, remember that. Canvass your household members, your neighbor, the man by the rum shop. Make sure you remind everyone in St. James North we're going to the polls on the 21st of May. I just want to apologize as I did not mention my name, having spent so many of my childhood days in Yearwood Road. My name is Christina Haynes, for those who don't know, and my co-host is Mr. Kareem Bess. Next, we have a legal mind, a dedicated public servant, and yes, a man who loves his cricket just as much as he loves his country. So watch out, because he's about to bowl some clean political shots. Make some noise for Senator Gregory Nichols.
We going big. We going big. We going big. Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action. We going big with Chad Blackman. Big man, big vision.
Good night, good night, good night. You would forgive me if I begin by apologizing to the people of St. James North for disappointing them when I canvass, because for some reason, some people mistake me for Chad Blackman. I told them that while I may be big, there is one big man in St. James North, and that he is the man that the Barbados Labour Party has brought home to work in this constituency. Many of you will know that I come from a different part of the country, St. Thomas. And like St. Thomas, St. James North has supported this great political institution for many years. And because of that, we have had to suffer every time the country has gone to the Dems. You have in this election to make a simple choice whether or not you're going to stay the course with the Barbados Labour Party that has been faithful to the people of this country, and particularly to the people of St. James North, and a political institution led by a man that was on this platform that left this party and has found every opportunity to curse us, to malign us, to defame us, and to frame the Barbados Labour Party in a way that would make you wonder whether you would ever don the color red or support the Labour Party ever again. But I want to say to you tonight, the members of the Barbados Labour Party community, the people of Mount Stamford, the people of the Garden, and all of those who are on the internet watching us. Barbados cannot afford to put any person from the Democratic Labour Party like the candidate that they have brought to us in Parliament. She ran in the country of her birth in a general election. In 2011, Castries Central and get less votes than what Natalie get in Bridgetown when Natalie ran in 2018. A political reject in her own land. She ran back behind the St. Lucia Labour Party, they ignored her. She ran back behind the United Workers' Party in St. Lucia, they ignored her too. And she went and joined a fringe party. And after one election, that fringe party done with her because she couldn't even get 40 votes. And now the Democratic Labour Party has summoned up this political ghost from St. Lucia to bring to the people of St. James North as an alternative in a by-election in Barbados. I want you to examine the facts as are being presented to you in this election. Because she has not come to public life in Barbados with any track record of service in her own country, far less service in ours. And we are not opposed to people from other countries in the Caribbean working and succeeding in Barbados. I want to remind you that in 2018, it was the Barbados Labour Party members and lawyers, myself, Minister Wilford Abrams, and others, who went all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice 2 days before the elections to ensure that CARICOM citizens who are living and working in Barbados can enjoy the right that is given to them in the law to vote in this country. And when Fundus Short accused the judges of the Caribbean Court of Justice as judges, as politicians in robes, it was the first time that we heard from this platform, long before President Trump was cursing the judges, a prime minister cursing the highest court of this land. This Barbados Labour Party has always been a party that had a fraternal accord with the working political parties, the parties that represented working peoples, from the time we have been established over 80 years ago. Our foundation, led by Grantley Adams, has allowed us to associate with Labour parties across the region. We are regional in focus. We are regional in focus. So we do not have any problem with people from any part of the Caribbean working, living in Barbados, and for that matter, even running for parliament. But ask yourself, examine the facts. How all of a sudden this political reject from St. Lucia could be offered up as a candidate in the first opportunity they have. That tells you the state of this organization in the other side. You cannot ignore that at their annual conference, members of the party were locked out at the gate from attending a church service. You can imagine a church service at a political convention, and members are shut out at the gate. The president of the Women's League, the president of the Young Democrats, women, old people at the gate can't use the bathroom, begging to come into an institution that they helped build. Senator Tricia Watson fired from the podium only because she poses a threat to that short run that leads the Democratic Labour Party. I want you to examine the facts. Michael Lashley, senior counsel, has not been given an opportunity to run in a seat in which he carried for the BLP in opposition and twice in government. And when you examine the electoral record of 2022, he would have done better than any of the other 29 candidates for the DLP. But he poses a threat. Because Ralph Thorne tonight leads a political party in a by-election and cannot tell the people of Barbados which seat he is running in. They are not a serious political institution. But what they are interested in, my friends, is a messaging of disturbance, a messaging of looking at every grievance in the society and laying it at the feet of this Barbados Labour Party administration. You know our track record. We came to office, and I'm not going back to 2018, I'm going back a little further because I want the younger members who are listening to what I have to say tonight to examine the record of both political parties in office. We came to office in 1994 with a quarter of the working people of this country unemployed. We came to office at a time when public servants had to get their salaries cut in order for the government to survive. changed all of that. We left unemployment at 6%. $2 billion in foreign reserves. Barbadians wanted change. And change they got. But within 10 years, 10 years, as Colin just said, 20-something downgrades, sewage flowing in the street, garbage not being picked up, buses breaking down, no buses going into rural Barbados and in communities like this. Garbage trucks non-existent, no roads being resurfaced. And public officers could not get a single salary increase. At the same time, they were printing money left, right, and center out of the central bank in order to pay wages and current bills. We took this country, and we don't say enough, from the brink of a devaluation, from the precipice. We told you, give us the vote and watch us. They told you that Errol Barron's vision for education as a platform for democracy and building a democracy and a true democracy was a vision for a time, and that time had passed. We sat down and watched them speak, speech after speech after speech, to tell you that we could no longer afford to send young people like the little girl standing here tonight. You can't go to university because Barron's vision did not extend to you. Barron's vision had come and ended. We came to office and said, look, it is about managing the economy. It is about prioritizing the needs of our people. The things that are critical, that must be done. The things that are desirable, and the plans for the future. It is about management. Owen Arthur taught us that. Tom Adams taught us that. And we have a political leader in Mia Motley who has sat down at the feet of some of the best political titans, not only in Barbados. Sat down in the critical ministries, education and culture. The Ministry of the Attorney General, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, both the social, economic, and the national security interests covered as a minister, and has brought a platform that has laid the foundation for the most rapid transformation as from an economy that was on the brink to an economy and a society that is stabilized throughout the world's greatest challenges that we face. And I want to say this to you, that when we talk about the difference between the two political parties, you will hear from this platform, and I hope that I will have more opportunities to engage with you from this platform. And when I walk around Western, where I am working to make sure that Chad Blackman gets this seat, you will hear from us our ideas as to how we will build a more resilient Barbados, how we will transform this society, because the institutions that have done well for Barbados from the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, and even in Owen Arthur's time, have had their time. We live in a 21st century that is no longer a society and a world economy that is based on an analog relationship. We may even say it's not even based on a digital relationship, that we have to embrace artificial intelligence in a different way. So when Chad Blackman, as the Minister of Education, speaks to you about transforming the education sector in Barbados, and you hear Ralph Thorne saying that he will go to his grave to defend the common entrance exam, a British imposition on this society that the British themselves have got rid of, that does not afford 3/4 of the students at that age a fair opportunity to progress in this society at age 11, you can understand that you have, on the one hand, a person and a political institution like the Democratic Labour Party that wants to keep us in the past, and a party like the Barbados Labour Party that wants to transform this society to make a global citizen of your children, just as Chad Blackman has become a global citizen, coming from Barbados, excelling in his field and representing us at the highest levels of the international community. We have brought him home. We have not dug up any political dead. We have brought Chad Blackman and not given him a token role in the Barbados Labour Party. We have given the Prime Minister of Barbados, in her wisdom and in her judgment, has chosen one of the brightest Barbadians of our generation. And when it came to this Barbados Labour Party, Chad Blackman was a youngster just like I was. President of the League of Young Socialists. He did not start at the top. Worked in the trenches. And we are so happy that the people of St. James North have related to Chad in a way. I sat and listened to Chad when he first spoke in the Senate. And I said to myself, this is a true Labour Party man. You know that we have had a couple debates since the estimates passed in March. In the Senate, you know, the Dems didn't turn up. Major pieces of legislation have been debated in the Senate. No person at all from the Democratic Labour Party. When the big fluffy fella come to eat lunch to record that he was there, come late. And when the leader on our side has finished speaking, nothing to say. Now that, I don't know what the media has reported, but you cannot have 2 weeks straight of a debate in the Senate on major pieces of legislation. A seaport industry bill, a bill to transform the fisheries sector, and nary a word from the DLP. Not a single sentence. We didn't see Ryan Walters in the Senate in weeks. Have not seen him. And I'm led to understand that when Edmund Hinkson had his last day in Parliament, when Parliament met in an extraordinary session to pay tribute to Edmund, that Ralph Thorne did not attend. Now that is a low in the politics of Barbados, if there ever was one. So we have, and I am not surprised, because if you could kick out the women from the party, the young socialists from the party, the young Democrats from your party, because we won't kick out young socialists. We don't operate like that. The old people from the party, stalwarts from the party, people that win seats, all of them have to kiss the political ring. I went to court last week and they got young lawyers who run under Verla. Can't meet Ralph I because them ain't bow down and kiss the short man ring. They can't understand. They're working in the constituency, running the last election, get the tail cut, like I get mine cut by Chris Sinclair. But we would get your tail cut and you come again. But them ain't get select because somebody meet in a room and say, no, you ain't kiss my ring, you ain't bow down to me. And I want you to examine the facts as they are. Because despite the messaging that you might see in the headlines in the newspapers and in the clips in social media about what is going on in politics in Barbados, I want Barbadians to dig deep, dig deeper than the headlines, and to recognize that you have a masquerading bunch of misfits who are incapable of understanding the global issues that confront this country. When we speak about building resilience in an era of climate change, when Barbados has become one of the loudest and largest voices in the international community about climate change, and how small states like Barbados have had their vulnerability exacerbated by the ravages of climate change. In my lifetime, we have had 2 hurricanes in less than 5 years, causing millions of dollars of damages in Barbados. Millions of dollars. The entire fishing industry has been affected by our last hurricane last year. A couple years ago, the housing stock was get a blunt damage because we didn't get the full impact of the hurricane. But you know what? I want you to remember, we celebrated a World Cup final in Barbados, and there was a tropical depression hovering in the Atlantic, and within less than 24 hours, it was a Category 1 hurricane. What that tells us is that the systems are now developing faster than ever before because the oceans are warmer. So when we speak to you about climate resilience, and you heard Ryan Strawn in the budget dedicate a long period of time to the measures that this government is employing to ensure that we build climate resilience. When we put on the table with the international lending agencies disaster clauses in our loans so that if we were ever hit by a climate catastrophe, those clauses will be triggered and our interest payments on these loans will be abated for the period to allow us to catch back ourselves, giving us almost $2 billion of fiscal space. This is the genius of the Mia Mottley-led Barbados Labour Party administration. You cannot come to a community like St. James North, a coastal community, a community that has a deep investment in the tourism industry, the fishing industry, the agricultural sector, and not speak about building resilience and capacity in the country. But what are we hearing? I got a call last night that the Dems went down to Weston and had a meeting that they had more police than people. That people laughing. But this is not a laughing matter. This is not a laughing matter. Because we know that the stakes that face us go beyond what the challenges the Democratic Labour Party posed to us. We understand that Barbados, as successful as we have had in turning around the Barbadian economy, turning around the society, that we still have work to do. We understand that with the fella in the White House, our cost of living and our standard of living can be compromised by executive order and a decision that he may make. We understand that with the war in Ukraine and the war that is emerging between Pakistan and India and the instability on the global sphere creates problems that we have to manage. So that is why we have brought Ambassador Blackman home. And I heard the candidate for the BLP complaining that she is at a disadvantage because she was called in the election and Chad knew that he was going to run and these things need changing. So what world is she living in? What cloistered corner is she in that she feels that she can just enter the political scene at a time that is convenient for her? Is there no talent on the other side? Is there no worldview? I recall when I spoke in the Senate, that story in the book of Judges, when the Lord said to Gideon, look, I got a big army, but if I send all these people to fight for you, we can get slaughtered and the people can curse me and forget that I am God. Go and carry the men down to the river, and those who drink and keep watch, pick 300 of them, and the ones that lap up the water like dogs, send them along home. What that story in the Bible tells us is that when you have a battle ahead to fight, you can't just bring in and everybody to fight for you because you will get slaughtered. What Chad Blackmon represents is a man who has been born in Barbados, who has reached a standard of excellence, internationally recognized, who walked the highest quarters of the international institutions. He was our ambassador, but he was elevated to international cabinet, if you could call it that, to lead at the International Labour Organization. Prime Minister Motley convinced him to come back to Barbados and to lead education transformation. I want, as I know my time coming short, to close with this. A couple days ago, the children of Barbados at the class 4 level sat a common entrance exam. A number of the other students, like my eldest daughter, would have done her CAPE exams. So the 6th formers were doing their exams. The Barbados Union of Teachers called out their members on a sick out to protest that the negotiations with the government in relation to the terms leave have not been concluded. That is their right. But I want to say this tonight. I was asked by the Barbados Union of Teachers in 2016 to represent them when Ronald Jones took away the terms leave. I was a lawyer that went to court for the Barbados Union of Teachers and won the case against the wicked Democratic Labour Party or administration. Mary Redmond from the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union also hired me when she called a meeting to discuss issues among her membership, and Ronald Jones and the wicked BLP docked the teachers' pay in Barbados. It was the Barbados Labour Party that came to office and repaid every single teacher in Barbados the dock pay that was unlawfully taken from teachers across both unions. Both unions. I went to court to ask a judge to give an injunction to stop what was unlawful because a minister cannot order anybody's pay to be docked. You know what the judge tell me? Well, they can get back the money anyhow. They will get their remedy and damages, so I'm not stopping the government, even if the government was unlawful. You could have knocked me down with a feather. We had to wait until we got into office to remedy that wrong that was done to the teachers. No strike, no sick leave, no sick outs were called when those wicked things were done to the teachers of this country. I want you to reflect on the facts. All of a sudden, there's a by-election and there is a sick out called by the union when the parties are negotiating the terms and conditions under which that leave, which for decades has been an administrative policy that, in fairness to the teachers, they don't know if I apply for leave, and I'm entitled to leave under the regulation, whether it is denied. What is the process under which that was denied? We are sorting out a regrading of the public service in Barbados because the last regrading of the public service in Barbados was done under the ONAFA administration. And any grade assigned to public officers in 2003, 2004, 2005 cannot be realistically be applied in 2025. And this process is ongoing. But on the eve of the students' exams, you have one of the teachers' unions pulling out teachers who has been hurt by that exercise. Who has been hurt by that exercise? That was intended, my friends, to be a blotch on the copybook of the Minister of Education as he was at that time, because there was an impending by-election signaled by the resignation of Mr. Edmund Hinkson. This is what the political machinations of that political institution called the Democratic Labour Party are breeding. Because you know the track record. All of the presidents has come up as DLP candidates. All. Or DLP operatives. That is their right. That is their solemn right as a citizen of Barbados to practice their political preference. But at the same time, the government of this country, led by the Honorable Mayor Motley, and at the time the Minister of Education, we have a solemn duty as well to protect the children of our country. So I want you, as you go through this election cycle, as short as it may be, to consider the decisive difference between the two political parties in Barbados. On the one hand, you have a serious political institution with a global focus, a political institution that has expanded Barbados' reach and Barbados' voice in places where we have never trodden. When you hear about the Bridgetown Initiative and global leaders like Macron in France and the former Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, coming to Barbados and hailing Prime Minister Modi from India, coming to Barbados, communing with us to build a global consensus as how we will tackle the issues that affect large and small countries alike. Nobody came in the last decade to visit Fumble. Nobody. They had no voice. They had no resonance. They had no presence. Barbados was just there sailing along as if there's nothing we could do. This is an election that has to send a decisive message to the people of Barbados and to the world. We have solid, decisive leadership in the Barbados Labour Party. We have a solid, decisive candidate with a transformative agenda. You hear Chad speak about the initiatives for this community alone. I will tell Chad no. I had out my notebook. And I can teach some of them. You see the cooperatives? You see every community having their own app so that people in the community will know what is going on around them. You see creating more opportunities for the farmers to sell branded products from St. James North on the market, to give pride and place to the sweat of your own brow and the fruits of your own labor. You see the tech hub? These are not ideas that are put to you as mere promises. If you hear Chad speak, even when he's sitting down at lunch and we are talking, the mind working and working and working as to how we can get things done. I saw Chad and Minister Jonathan Reed quarreling. I want my ministry digitized. And Jonathan said, yes, I will work with you. But Chad, I want it done now. Because education is so important to the people of this country. And they want a priority. And we engaging in that debate, trying to build for Barbados. So as I close, I want you to consider the facts as are being presented. When the Dems come to you, listen to what they say, but dig deeper. Look at where this country was under Fumble Stewart, and look at where it is now, and envision where it is going. We are going big. We are going with a man with a big vision, a big passion. We are going with Chad Blackman on the 21st of May, 2025. And we are going to place in St. James North the best of what the Labour Party has to offer you, the people of Barbados. Good night, and may God bless all of you.
Chad,
Senator Nichols. The Honorable Tony Moore, Member of Parliament for St. George North and the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, will address you tonight. Bet who bet you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Miss Tony Moore.
We going big. We going big. We going big.
Go big or go home. Good night, Husbands Road, Husbands Gap. Good night, St. James North. Good night, St. James North. Good night, St. George North. When they're looking sweet. Tonight, the task that I have, especially after Senator Nichols cut into my time, is a very easy one. The task that I have is one to endorse the big man himself, to endorse Mr. Chad Blackman to you, the people of St. James North. But what am I doing? Most of you, as we have been canvassing this constituency, have been telling us, we know the big man. As many of you have been telling us, we want to see the big man. And I want to say something before I get any further. He will not get to all of you before May 21st. That is one promise that we are not going to make on his behalf. Because in the Barbados Labour Party, we are not committed to making promises that we cannot keep. There are 13 days left till May 21st. And many of you want to see him, and many of you want to engage with him, and all of you will not get that privilege before May 21st. But I know the big man with the big vision, the big passion, the big action man, I know that he will commit to and he will be able to meet you at where you are after May 21st, when you, the people of St. James North, elect him to walk into Parliament, not as a senator, not as a minister of education, but for the duly elected member of Parliament for this constituency. When I first met Chad, it was back in 2007. At that point in time, he was younger than he is now, and I was young. I was the youth coordinator of the Barbados Workers Union Youth Arm. And we had a seminar entitled Building Our Future Together, Committing to Excellence. And Chad was invited as the featured speaker to that conference, Building Our Future Together, Committing to Excellence. I never expected that I would have the pleasure not only to sit down and listen to him challenge a number of young workers around that theme, but that I would also have the opportunity to work with Chad in a meaningful way under the banner of the Barbados Labour Party to not only speak about that theme, but to live the theme, building our future together, committing to excellence. But that was back in May 2007. It would be some 11 years later that I would meet Chad again and get the opportunity to work with him. Not here in Barbados, but in Geneva. In Geneva at the International Labour Organization, because many of you know by now that Chad was the ambassador to the World Trade Organization and to a number of other international organizations, of which the International Labour Organization was one. And why was this opportunity special to me? Because for years and years, for decades, it was my organization, the Barbados Workers Union, that largely spent its time waving the flag and flying the flag of Barbados, not just the Barbados Workers Union, but of Barbados high within the walls of that organization. But we had this big man, a young man, and what I observed the next occasion, I had a governing body meeting in 2018, going up to Geneva. I observed this man weaving his way through people. I don't mean just passing through, but almost everybody that Chad passed, Chad was speaking to. And he was even coming to introduce me to people that I had seen in the organization and who I had never taken the opportunity to have a discussion with them. It filled me with pride. It filled me with a certain sense of pride because Barbados for years was being knocked. I remember the former Director General, Guy Ryder. And one day he came to me and said, Tony, what is happening? What is happening in your country? We are hearing downgrade after downgrade. And you don't even have cricket in the West Indies to give you a boost. But the difference that Chad brought in 2018, not only going about his work in the World Trade Organization, but getting intricately involved in even those areas like labor that he wasn't naturally comfortable in. And what that led to was Chad not only being able to operate at the ambassadorial level, but then Chad was able to come to the Prime Minister and say, I am going to step back a little, not because I'm shirking my responsibility, but the International Labor Organization has seen in me the kind of talent that they want to do to promote labor, use to promote labor at the international level to serve as the senior advisor to the Director General. And in so doing, he would continue to bring credit to Barbados. So that is the context that I would wish to speak on for a while. Chad has brought back or has been part of a team because our Minister of Labor has done very, very well in that regard as well. But Chad has been able to bring back attention to Barbados in a very remarkable way in that organization. I remember well my first 4 years of leadership at the level of the General Secretary of the BWU. At a time where, as you've heard from previous speakers, the government wasn't interested in talking to anybody, let alone labor leaders. I well remember when I had to join forces with some other trade unionists, and we marched against the injustices. Gregory will remember this one well. We marched against the unjust treatment of workers at the BIDC, where they were terminated. And one of the things that struck me, one of the first things, and I want you to listen to this, because I find as Barbadians, when things start going well our way, we forget the struggles of the past. And I remember that another union leader, the then president of the National Union of Public Workers, and myself, we not only got scoffed for wanting to burn calories. I don't know that I look like I want to burn calories, and I was the same size as then as I am now. But they jeered us for wanting to call attention to ourselves, burning calories. And then they also frowoned on us, and I want you to listen to this because I'm sure if you go back to the Starcom clip, you will hear it. The union leadership at the level of the BWU and the NUPW were compared to rapists and thieves. And that is the level of disdain and disregard that the leaders of the workers' movement were recognized, how we were recognized by the then Democratic Labour Party government. And I start there. And I want to make it clear, anytime I take a political stage in a meeting, you're not going to get your typical speaker. Because I recognize well that the reason why I am here is to serve workers who are not only members of the Barbados Labour Party, but who are also members of the Democratic Labour Party and will have other interests. But it is important every time I position myself to speak on the part of labor that I remind workers of Barbados and their families where we came from. We came from that point. And I context it there because we moved to another level now, where on assuming office, the Barbados Labour Party not only opened up to consultation, but approached Labor to come on board. Now, it was in 2020 that I eventually said yes, but that was not the first request of us to come in. But the reason why I accepted in 2020 on behalf of the BWU, I won't go through that because before I explain to you that we were in a critical time. We were in a critical time in COVID, and there were decisions that had to be made, and we had to continue to give life to the vision of Grant Lee Adams when he formed the Barbados Workers Union back in 1941, the vision of making sure that an economic arm of the party was empowered to represent workers. So we didn't have to go petitioning where a prime minister or a cabinet member wouldn't even come out and give us a look. We were petitioned to come and work with the party of the day. And it was 4.5 years ago that I started the journey on behalf of the Barbados Workers Union with the Barbados Labour Party. And notwithstanding all the criticisms and so on that were hurled in our direction as a union for taking that bold step, I am sure today that many of you can see the distance that we have come from having to beg for attention, starved of decisions that would impact the livelihoods of working men and women and their families in a positive way. I want you to recall the distance we've come, because the thing is about us in this society is when things seem to come too easy, we forget. And we also undervalue the significance of everything that we have achieved. So very quickly, I want to recall to your attention the distance that we have come in the last 4.5 years. The first thing that happened 6 months after I became a member of parliament, a minimum wage was introduced in Barbados effective April 1st, 2021. And if you are a working man or a woman, especially in the lower strata, and you are in this crowd, I think you should clap for that. In a few days, effective June 1st, that minimum wage will be increased by $2 from $8.50 to $10.50 an hour. That is something to clap about, although I have some complaints about it as well, Minister of Labor. But that for another time. We heard in the budgetary proposals, the statement this year, that paternity leave is going to be put into law. And this is something that the union under Frank Walcott, come down to Sir Roy Trotman, and now to Tony Moore, has been included into agreements over time to ensure that eventually we could get it into law. That has been achieved. Only 3 weeks as a starter, but we're working on that. We have seen maternity leave increase by 2 weeks, from 12 weeks to 14. What else have we received? A labor budget this year guaranteed every citizen in Barbados above the age of 18 years old a solidarity allowance of $300. We have seen increases to the allowance for tax purposes of union dues. And by the way, if any of you filed and you saw that 240 was still in there, you know Bragg got some adjustment to do because the government of Barbados committed us that from income year 2024. So we have seen also tax-free allowances, meal allowances for hotel and restaurant workers. And why is this significant? Because the hotel sector came into strong focus during COVID, when many workers agreed to give up their severance. And then after that, after recovery, we saw hotels trying to pull back even the meal allowance and things that the people got, and then try to convince them that they shouldn't push for it because the government going to tax it anyhow, and they might end up getting less money if they get more meal allowance. So we fixed that, and the meal allowances are now tax-free. On the Mission Barbados, one of the 5 missions focuses specifically on people and worker empowerment and enfranchisement. And we've had the laws passed. We've had the labor contracts law and the labor concessions law to ensure that anybody who benefits from the public purse must adhere to minimum standards which the union will negotiate. These are things that a Labour Party government that works along with a labor union is achieving for working men and women in this country. And I don't say that as a brag, because we know the naysayers. And I can hear them now. And I want to provide you with some answers for them. Because I could hear them saying, don't mind them. She up there talking about an additional $2 in the minimum wage. That is a 24% increase to businesses. The government, they made businesses bankrupt. But I want you to know that back in 2021, when the minimum wage was introduced, it was understood that a family of 4, a mother and 3 children, if a living wage instead of a minimum wage, that is enough to suffice getting by on, was to be achieved, that the rate should not have been $8.50. It should have been $12.15. And this is where a little vexed with the Minister of Labor, because it should not have taken 4 years for us to do the adjustment. But we are working on it, and I will ensure that another 4 years does not go by before the next adjustment. And then we will hear, but that minimum wage and this $300, the $300 ain't anything. In fact, I have heard trade unionists trying to suggest to some of their members that it is to replace public sector increases. If a government gives a $300 solidarity gesture to everybody, how could that be something that is intended to replace negotiations unless you don't know how to negotiate? So the $300 allowance that they scoff at, I was talking to a constituent of mine only on Sunday evening who was asking me if her 18-year-old son will get it and if her grandmother will get it. In that house is not only her 18-year-old son and her grandmother, but it is she and her husband. So that is 4 people that will get $300. What's 4 by 300? Is that something to scoff at? And this government that has committed to telling you, share the burden, share the bounty, made that gesture, and they will want to poop pie. They will tell you that the hotelier is still cutting corners, although we have the Labor Concessions Act. And I want you to remember that every journey starts with a first step. And we have the laws in place, and as sure as the sun will rise tomorrow, and as sure as on the 21st of May, Chad will be elected as the Member of Parliament for St. James North, that hotel agreement, the agreement that targets mainly the tourism sector, will be enforced in Barbados, but you have to get the law implemented first. I want you not to be fooled. We heard Gregory making mention of the fact that they said Chad has an unfair advantage. But I remember well sitting down and hearing a part, what you would call them, when you announce the people that run in bits and pieces. They get announced, and they said that they were ready. So if you were ready, how can anything be an unfair advantage to you? I also heard an interview recently saying, well, you know, I'm interested in fixing the roads in Barbados and in St. James North because people pay taxes. And if you pay taxes, you must get roads. For 10 years, that same party that she's representing, not a single road. And the reason why I go to roads is because I remember it well in my by-election too. And I advise and admonish the people who were speaking on my behalf. Don't make no promises for me, because I am making none for myself. All I will commit to people is that I will do my best. And why do I say that? It's because there are 30 constituencies. 30 constituencies for 10 years ain't get a road. You expect that everybody in all 30 can be happy in the same way all the time. But remember the journey. Every journey starts with a first step. And I know that even as I am speaking to you, the people of St. James North, and I am saying to you to continue to be patient and measure us not by our words, but measure us by our actions, that equally I'm speaking to the people in St. George North who are waiting their roads still, and I'm speaking to the people in St. Peter who are still awaiting their roads, and I'm speaking to the people in St. Thomas who are still awaiting their roads, and we are not making vain promises because drive around Barbados. Your turn will come. So as I speak and endorse Chad tonight, as I say to you, the people of St. James North, I don't tell you that you don't have a choice. That's why I hear the person that running for the other party saying, there's no choice, but there is a choice. And the choice that you have is not to vote for a representative on the basis of what they tell you they are going to do. I want you to judge Chad as a representative that is being presented to you on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party, a party that took over in 2018 when this country was at its brink. And when, as it relates to labor, there was a distance to be covered. When, as it related to roads, there was a distance to be covered. When, as it related to the overall economy, there was a distance to be covered that some believe was impossible in the time that it took. And I want you to see Chad Blackman as a member of that team that the Prime Minister of Barbados as party leader sought after to bring back. Not only to send out as an ambassador, but to bring back to lift heavyweight in the same way that in 2020, she approached the Barbados Workers Union to come and lift heavyweight. And you are seeing the difference. While they talk, we continue to work. While they jeer, we keep our focus. And that is why, St. James North, I am saying to you that on the 21st of May, you have a choice. You have a choice to continue to fight for the soul of this country. You have a choice to continue to fight for your children's future. You have a choice to continue to fight for the lives and livelihood of working men and women in this country. And in exercising that choice, I don't take your vote for granted. I don't take your support as votes. I don't take the fact that as we traverse this constituency, you tell us we read by name and nature. We want to see you going out to the polls from 6 a.m. on May 21st till 6 p.m. on May 21st when the polls close. And you are not only making a statement to St. James North, but you are making a statement to the Barbados constituency, the constituency of Barbados, all 30, that we are happy with the Barbados Labour Party, not because it's a perfect government, because we have seen what they have been doing, and we will commit to working with them as they continue to grow this country. Good night to everyone. Vote for the big man with the big passion and the big vision and the big action, and vote for the Barbados Labour Party. We going big. We going red. We going big. Let me hear you. Solidarity forever.
Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action. We going big with Chad Blackman. Big man, big vision, big
St. James North, icy red. Anybody else see any color icy red? I know yesterday somebody asked me if they had open air service in Weston, but I wasn't sure. But I think icy red. Next up, we have holding down the fort in St. James South, standing strong. We have the Minister of Education. While she's acting, she's helping our comrade at this time. As he traverses St. James North, she's going to take on the battle of handling the military on her own. We welcome next the MP for St. James South, Minister of Education, Mrs. Sandra Husbands.
We going big. We going big. We going big. Go big or go
Good night to you here in St. James North. I am so happy to be here to work alongside my comrade Chad, to work with his wonderful team, and that young lady Christina and Stacy. Oh my goodness, those girls really work hard and they really support Chad, and I want to salute every one of them. I really appreciated what I've been hearing tonight, and in particular, I appreciated the fact that Tony Moore spoke about the everyday issues that matter to people, the working conditions, the pay that they're getting. These things are important. Those things are called bread and butter issues. Every day that you wake up in this country, you have to study your bread and butter issues. You got to think about how you're going to put food on the table every day. You got to think about how you're going to pay the light bill, the water bill, the gas bill, the rent, how you're going to put shoes on your children's feet. These are the things that worry people every single day. And bread and butter issues are important. The question is, how are you as a family, how are you going to take care of these bread and butter issues? Now, at a first glance, when we were children, we used to feel that it was easy for mommy and daddy to do things for us. We felt that if we asked them for things, they should be able to do it. Just go and get money and do it. How hard could that be? But as children, we never understood what were the dynamics around living, what it took for our parents to make sure that there was bread and butter in the house. As adults, we know it is not as simple as that. And every day in this country, there are issues confronting people that create a lot of pressure for them as they seek to wonder, how am I going to solve it? And so often you can feel alone when you are struggling to deal with your bread and butter issues. But I'm here tonight to tell you that you have in the Barbados Labour Party a government who not only understands your bread and butter issues, but knows what to do about them. And that is what we've been doing from the time we have come into office, and we will continue to work to do so. So tonight I want to share with you some things that we need to understand about our bread and butter issues. First of all, as an adult, you know that to keep the bread and butter there in place, you have to have a job. And the Barbados Labour Party understands that. So you have to grow your economy so your economy can create the types of jobs that young people can get work, that people can get decent pay, that people can pursue their dreams, that people can start their own businesses and hire people. This is how you create bread and butter and put it on the table. But what does it take to generate a job? You have to manage your economy. So if you are going to partner with a government, you have to look for a government who knows how to grow your economy. And what does that mean? It means that you understand in order to get jobs, you have to get investments. You have to be able to persuade people to come to your country, set up businesses so that you can get work for your people. You also know that if you are to do that successfully, you must have the things that attract them to come to the country. So what has this government been doing? We have been putting in place a number of attractive incentives for businesses to come and set up in Barbados. But this is something that we do as a group. that we do as a team. And part of that team was Chad Blackman, who worked in the Ministry of Economic Affairs. Economic Affairs has the responsibility to be able to work, to look for loans, to look for opportunities, to look for investment, to look for businesses, to get them to come to this country. This was the work Chad was doing. So at the macro level, Chad was already looking after your bread and butter. But it is not only being able to attract businesses. If you're going to get businesses to come to your country, you have to have the skills that people need. They have to have the training. They have to know what they're doing. They have to have the ability to give that investor the quality work that he is looking for. And what does that mean? It means that our country has got to invest in the education of its people. It means that we have to bring education transformation so that we start to train our young people to build up the set of skills that will make this place attractive for them to come so that they can be bread and butter on the table. That is how you create bread and butter. And every day, the Barbados Labour Party team goes to work to ensure that we can attract those businesses. And that is one of the reasons why the Prime Minister has asked for Chad to be a part of that team, because Chad comes prepared. Chad comes ready. You already heard tonight how he worked at the ILO with the Labour Office, how he worked with the World Trade Organization. All of these things are part of the process that helps to put bread and butter on the table. So while he was at the WTO, what was he dealing with? At the World Trade Organization, there are a number of things that they deal with that affect our bread and butter right here in Barbados. One of the things, for example, that they were dealing with recently was with the fisheries agreement. Now, you might hear that and think, oh, that has something to do, oh, those people over there has nothing to do with me. No, every element of that agreement has an impact on every fisherman in this country, because it determines the conditions under which governments can engage and support their fisheries industry. And that is why we had to be up there fighting. And Chad was the man assigned to that fight. And that is what I mean when I say to you that when it comes to putting bread and butter on the table, it is not just about going to a supermarket to buy it. It is about creating the conditions that allows your economy to give you the opportunity to get a job, to get the life conditions that will allow you to provide for your family. That is what we do. But it's not only that we have to provide skills by retraining our children, giving them a better education, and Chad was put in charge of that. At the tertiary level, change had to occur too. That is one of the reasons why the Prime Minister created the ministry that I am in, which is the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education. There is a shortage of skills across the world, whether you're talking about carpentry, masonry, engineering, construction, project management, IT, you name it. There is a shortage of skills across the world. But yet you have people who are unemployed. Why is that? Because we have not trained them in the specific skills that are needed at this time. So if you want to get bread and butter, one of the things a caring and competent government would have to do is to set about retraining our young people in the new technological skills, the vocational skills that will make them ready for work. So one of the things we have aimed for is to compete in the World Skills Competition, where Barbadian children at the tertiary institutions, whether at the Barbados Vocational Training Board, or they're at BCC, or they're at SJPI, they are trained in the technological skills and are sent overseas to compete against the world's best, wherever it is, Russia, Paris, China, where have you. But one of the things that we discovered was that our students were not being exposed to the level of technological training that really will cut it on a global stage. And failing to do that, failing to train them to the level, you are consigning them to a life where they cannot make a living for themselves. They cannot create their own bread and butter. So what have we done? As a team, as we sat and worked on the estimates, we have looked at some of the changes that we have to make to tertiary education to make sure that the young people in this country can dream again, that they can look forward to leaving school with certification, that they can go on and get additional skills and be able to get that job that will put bread and butter on the table. What are some of the other bread and butter issues that are important to people? People are concerned when you have a burst pipe. They're concerned when you need housing. They are concerned when something needs fixing, like the Sanitation Services Authority or buses. But how do you fix those things? You can only fix those things if you're able to acquire the financing that you need in order to ensure that you can do good by your people. So it is more than just someone saying, well, we need a road or we need pipes or we need whatever. What we have to do as a government is to so manage the issues of governing the country that we're able to get the loans to be able to provide that. And how do you do that? In order to get the loans, you have to start and fix your credit rating levels. I remember how the Democratic Labour Party tried to make people feel that credit ratings were not important. But credit ratings were important because it determines what level of interest you have to pay. It also determines whether people will lend you money or not. And all we had during the Dems' time, downgrade after downgrade. But from the time the Barbados Labour Party, under the leadership of Mia Amor Motley, took the reins and took a hold of the economy of Barbados and began to right-size it and began to put it in its strategic position that it could grow, what were we seeing? Our credit rating was improving year after year after year after year. And what does that mean for your bread and butter issues? It means that we can get the loans that will help us to build homes, the loans that we need to fix roads, the loans that we need for Sanitation Service Authority. That is how you fix the bread and butter issues of your people. It's important. The other thing that is important is that if people are going to have bread and butter, you have to ensure that you do whatever you can to constrain the rise of the cost of living. Now, unfortunately, the cost of living is not under our total control. So, for example, if you get a shortage of anything, you're going to get price increases. So what happens if you have a climate crisis that is affecting agriculture, that is affecting the growing of wheat that you make bread from? If you get a shortage in that area, you're going to see the cost of bread going up. If you have a shipping crisis and the cost of shipping goes up, it means the cost of everything that you use in your home, everything you want to buy for your family is going to go up. But what do you do? As a country, you don't have direct control. But what did the Mia Motley government do? Prime Minister went overseas, traveled to the various capitals of the world, and began to put the case in relation to climate change. Because without bringing a change to how we deal with climate and how we deal with climate resilience, you can't protect agriculture. You cannot therefore protect the cost of food, and therefore you cannot protect people's everyday bread and butter. And that is why she did the Bridgetown Initiative. That is why she spoke about the climate crisis. That if we could get a change in how the world dealt with their issues, that we should be able to control what was happening in terms of that climate crisis. So it's important. So what does that mean, therefore, for you as a family? It means that if you are concerned with bread and butter issues, the everyday issues of living, you have a responsibility to make a choice for a government who has a vision for what needs to be done to ensure that there's bread on your table. You have to make sure that you select a government that has a plan as to how they're going to address the issues that affect your bread and butter. And you have to make sure that you select a government that is competent then to execute that plan and to produce the result. Now, I know that as the Barbados Labour Party, we make things look real easy. We come in, we shake things down, we pull them together, we take bold, innovative decisions, and all of a sudden, that which is wrong turns right. And we make it look easy, but it is not. It calls for creativity, it calls for courage, it calls for hard work, it calls for competence. And what does that mean? It means that every single person that we bring to political office must have the ability to vision, to plan, and to be competent. And tonight, to the people of St. James North, we are saying to you that Chad Blackman is the person with a vision, with a plan, and has already demonstrated competence in economic affairs and in education to be able to work with this team to make sure that there's bread and butter on your table every day because of how we manage the economy. And so we're saying to you, May 21st, vote for Chad, vote for the Barbados Labour Party, vote for your family, and vote for those bread and butter issues that matter every single day to your life by entrusting yourself and your life to the Barbados Labour Party. May God bless each and every one of you here in St. James North.
We going big, we going big, we going big. Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action.
Thank you, Minister Husbands. Would the driver of A1469 please attend to your vehicle? A1469. The Honorable Ian Gooding Edgell, Member of Parliament for St. Michael West Central and Minister of Tourism and International Transport, the man who has ensured that we have records on top of records arrivals and has ensured that tourism is great. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, the Honorable Ian Gooding Edgell.
We going big, we going big, we going big. Go big or go home. Big man.
Good night, St. James North. It is a wonderful thing to be here in Husbands Road. And it is even better to be here in support of your next parliamentary representative, Chad Blackman. And I say to you tonight, St. James North, that your choice in this by-election is very clear. You have a choice between a young man, proven public service, and somebody who comes to you, humble as he has come to you, walking this district for as long as he has walked this district. He's come to you with a sense of compassion, humility, and a man with a plan who is prepared, ladies and gentlemen, to offer you quality and continued good representation in St. James North. And I say to you that Chad represents the future of what the best of this country will have to offer. He represents and will complement the Barbados Labour Party's team. As you well know, he was Minister of Economic Affairs, and not so long ago, he was Minister responsible for educational transformation. And what does that mean? Two heavyweight ministries, a man focused on the youth, a man focused on the development of this country. And with a man like Chad Blackman, who in a very short period of time has demonstrated the capacity to lead ministries, a man who's demonstrated the capacity to be representative of young people in this society and beyond Barbados, a man who came, like me and most of us, from humble circumstances, but rose to join us in public service at a time when some people believe that they should only come to public service because public service, they believe, has some attractiveness to it. But Chad has come to this constituency, and he has come to public service and to public life because he's committed to people. He cares about people. He understands the plight of people, and he will work very hard and work diligently on behalf of the people of this constituency and by extension the people of Barbados. So I say to you, have absolutely no fear, have none whatsoever in the quality of representation that you will come to expect from Chad Blackman. And if I stand here before you and I'm smiling and I'm happy, it is because I know that this young man has your interests at heart. He's committed and he knows about the development, not only about this constituency and what he wants to accomplish for you, but he understands what is required to help build up Barbados, and that is the difference that we need in this constituency and in Barbados. We need dedicated people who will come to public service and will offer themselves and not come to public service because you believe that there's some unique attractiveness to it. He comes to public service, as I said, humble, sincere, and dedicated to the cause. But above all, he comes to this constituency in the name of the Barbados Labour Party because he has come to offer you a commitment to what the Barbados Labour Party has set over 87 years ago. A commitment to the betterment of the people, a commitment to an improvement of quality of life and for a better life for our people. That is your next representative, what is embodied in him, Chad Blackman. And I say to you that the timing could not have been better. Chad comes to you to complement what Edmund would have done down here, but he also comes to you with a firm understanding of the issues in this constituency. But he also understands the issues that affected Barbados. And he's part of a team that continues to restore and to rebuild Barbados, ladies and gentlemen. When the Barbados Labour Party came to office, we had broken infrastructure. The roads that you never seen repaved in this constituency, today you are witnessing a continuation of the road improvement program that the Barbados Labour Party started in 2018. We have not done all the roads yet, but you can see that we are making a major dent in the improvement in the road infrastructure in Barbados. Don't you see the roads, the wonderful roads that we are repaving in this constituency? Chad Blackman came to this constituency and to offer himself to Barbados. But when the Dems were in office, when we took up the mantle back in 2018, you know what we were faced with. A broken bus service. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you can boast that your Barbados has the most electric buses to be found anywhere in the Caribbean. And Lord knows that they're wonderful, air-conditioned with Wi-Fi and everything else that you want in them, ladies and gentlemen. When we came to office, unemployment was high. And what did we do? Systematically work to improve employment opportunities in this constituency. We did so because it was up to us, because we knew that we had to do so if we wanted to improve the lives of Barbadians, and in particular, the lives of the people in this constituency. When we came to office, there were downgrades upon downgrades being wreaked upon the Barbados, Barbados as a country, by the Democratic Labour Party. And by contrast, what do you see? A country with a team led by Prime Minister Montley, working hard and long hours, making the best of what we had to improve the quality of life. But at the same time, what have you witnessed? Upgrade upon upgrade. You don't hear anything about downgrades, ladies and gentlemen. And we were busy pursuing opportunities. We were busy pursuing growth for Barbados. And with growth, what does that mean? It is a fancy word when you hear growth. But what does it mean for you? What does it mean for your family? What does it mean for wider Barbados? With growth, you have more jobs coming your way, more employment opportunities, and you know that we've done a credible job in that respect. We have taken unemployment to the lowest levels in Barbados on record. When you talk about growth, what have we done? We have improved the infrastructure in Barbados. I talked about the roads, but look around and you can see what are buildings that are going up. You can see the improvement that we're doing to the schools. You can see what we're spending the taxpayers' money on. So don't let anybody come around you and fool you and tell you that we're not doing what we're supposed to do. You elected us in 2018, and based on performance, you returned us in 2022. And I'm telling you, with a leader like Mayor Montley, you have to work and work hard, and we all know that. Sometimes you don't get a chance to breathe. But she is very focused, and she does work her team hard like any good leader should do in order to get results. And we have been working for you, St. James North. We have been working for you to deliver, to ensure that you have a better quality of life, uplifting and upholding the motto of the Barbados Labour Party. And let me get back to growth. What does it mean? It means that you have more social services on the way. The Barbados government, led by Mayor Montley, has given the Welfare Services Department more money than any administration in the history of Barbados. And why did we do it? We could only have done it if the economy was growing. And we are growing the economy. So like I've said to you, I'm still suffering a little bit of a cold from all my travels. But what I can say to you, that we will continue to grow the Barbados economy. And with growth, ladies and gentlemen, you will be better off. And let me also make this point to you. Because we are in St. James, and in St. James North in particular, this is a tourism belt. And I've come to you not because I am your minister of tourism and international transport, but I've come to you tonight to show the contrast between the Democratic Labour Party on the one hand and the Barbados Labour Party. And what have we done? You all recall when the Democratic Labour Party was in office, what happened? We lost American Airlines flights from Puerto Rico. We lost flights from Dallas in August 2012. The American service that you were accustomed to from John F. Kennedy, they lost that on the 14th of January of 2014. They had Gulf Airlines coming from Brazil. They too lost that on the 27th of August in 2016. They had Avianca coming to Barbados, and they lost that as well. And they had Delta coming from Atlanta, ladies and gentlemen, and they too, they lost it on the 12th of August, 2017. But what has your Barbados Labour Party done for people who work in the tourist belt in St. James North? What have we done? We reintroduced, ladies and gentlemen, Delta Airlines from Atlanta, not only to give you a choice for travel if you want to go and see your friends or visit another destination, but we did so because we had to generate more tourists coming to Barbados in order for them to spend more. And when they spend more, what happens to you and what happens to the economy right here in St. James North? When we get more airlift, when we have more tourists, what happens? You, the people of St. James North, who are involved in the tourism sector, who work in the tourism sector, who are entrepreneurs in the tourism sector, and who service people who work in the tourism sector, you too benefit, and I will go into that shortly. But we also had the return, and we welcome American Airlines from JFK. Daily services. If you want to go and visit your friends and your family in New York, you have another choice. You have JetBlue, and now you have American Airlines. And they're flying year-round and daily. You also have Philadelphia that came into Barbados, bringing additional tourists to this country, bringing more air seat capacity to Barbados. And ladies and gentlemen, it is not a secret. Over the last winter season alone, we have brought to Barbados, because we're looking after your interests as a party, more than 60,000 new air seats into Barbados. So what I'm saying, 60,000 seats in addition to the seats that we would have on the other airlines that were not flying to Barbados, that came here to Barbados. And I say to you that with a record of that, in St. James North, you will become, and you have become, the beneficiaries. Because everywhere you walk, when you're today alone, I was canvassing on the Coast Road. And a gentleman, Mr. Hines is his name, and he said to me when I was asking him for the vote for Chad, he said, I want to thank you and to thank the Barbados Labour Party, because tourism is flourishing. And he's seeing the benefits, and he wanted to congratulate the government for the job they're doing. But when tourism is flourishing, you benefit. There are people in this constituency who are fishermen and who work in the fish business. And they go to work every day, and they go to sea as well every day. And they do so because when they go to sea and they bring produce and they bring fish into Barbados, they sell it to the hotels, they sell it to the restaurants, and of course, us as locals, we buy some. So that when tourism is growing, the shops in this community will also benefit. When tourism is going, the restaurants will continue to thrive. When tourism is flourishing, small businesses will do better. When tourism is going strong, the vendors and the water sports operators in St. James North will benefit even more. And when tourism is moving at a steady pace and growing year on year, there are more jobs for the people in St. James North, in the hotels, in the villa markets, and of course the restaurants, and other indirect services that provide goods and services to the tourism sector. And when there is more airlift into Barbados, hotels expand. And when hotels expand, you get more employment opportunities. And when, as we are doing now, building out more hotels in Barbados, and we have more than 1,400 hotel rooms in the pipeline to come, under construction in this country. When we build out more hotel assets in Barbados, there's more employment opportunities, and there are more jobs for you and your families, ladies and gentlemen. And I say to you that Chad Blackman is but a man who will be on the journey with us to help build out St. James North with tourism. He will not only ensure that you have good representation in respect of how we guide Barbados, but he will also be able to help a minister like me to give me ideas and suggestions and to say how best we can build out tourism for the benefits of his constituents. So I say to you that we have come a long way. We've worked hard and we've earned your trust. And it is our number one job to continue to earn your trust by working hard, by delivering. And with Chad Blackman, a man who has demonstrated a capacity for hard work, a man who understands the social fabric of Barbados, a man who has your best interests at heart, a man who will continue as your elected member of parliament to carry on the good works in this constituency. And I say to you that Chad Blackman will make a fundamental difference. He will do what is required and he will do good. And he will, like all the other members of the cabinet and members of parliament on our side, continue to work hard in your best interests. Because I want to make it clear, when we go to work, the number one focus is not on ministers, it's not on the prime minister, as others will have you believe. When we go to work and we work hard, we are doing so with your very best interests at heart. And public life is not easy. It is difficult. And representing people will never be easy. But once you've come to public life and you've offered your service, there's no better good than you can do but to help build out this country and to build your constituency and to ensure that when you look back, you can see, I came here to this constituency and I served and I left the people in a better position. And I tell you that Chad Blackman will do so. Chad Blackman will ensure that you have a better quality of life in St. James North. And I believe they're signaling to me that I should come home. As I was getting ready to warm up, and I was getting ready to tell you that the work in tourism is not over. And I look forward to working with Chad so that we can bring more flights from Copa to Barbados. We can bring more flights from North America to Barbados. That we can bring more flights from Canada to Barbados. That we can bring more flights from Europe to Barbados, because this is a tourism belt. And when we succeed in tourism, you, the people of St. James North, will also succeed with us. So as I close tonight, I want to say to you that even though we have a couple days left before we get to May 21, I want to say to you, I want you to go to the polls on May 21. I want you to bring your friends and your family. I want you to ensure that you get out there early and vote, and that you join the brigade and go there and get other people to get them to the polls to vote for Chad Blackman. And I say to you that a vote for Chad Blackman is a vote for progress. A vote for Chad Blackman is a vote for a better quality of life for the people in St. James North. And a vote for Chad Blackman is to continue the representation here in St. James North. Go to the polls on May 21. Vote for Chad Blackman. Give it your best shot. And Chad Blackman will never let you down. Good night and God bless you.
Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action. We going big with Chad Blackman. Big man, big vision, big passion. We going big with Chad Blackman. His talent and ability beyond his years maturity.
St. James North, people and residents of Prescott Road, Yearwood Road, Husbands Road, good evening, good night. A special thanks to Ms. Parker and Sonia for allowing us to use their facilities tonight for this meeting. The next speaker is no stranger to us. here in St. James North, having represented us for the last 12 years or past 12 years. He has now passed the baton to a young man in whom he has confidence that will continue to represent the people of St. James North with dedication and integrity. St. James North, comrades, and the Barbados Labour Party, please join me in welcoming Mr. Eggman Gregory Hickson.
We going big. We going big. We going big. Go big or go home.
Good night, family of the Barbados Labour Party and St. James North. This is, of course, the first time I'm speaking on a political platform in St. James North for 17 years for someone other than myself. And I feel so proud tonight to speak here in support of the candidacy of Chad for the Barbados Labour Party to be the next representative of St. James North. That entails you all in St. James North not only supporting Chad, but going and cast your vote in his favor on the 21st. Because it's not support alone. It's not that 5:30 you're sitting down and supporting Chad, but haven't gone in the polling booth to vote. It is going to vote for Chad on the 21st of May. I first want to thank St. James North for investing the confidence you did in me for 3 successive terms, 12 years. You will always be my family. We will always have that umbilical cord and connection. I thank Sonia Varieties, not only for tonight, but during COVID, and we're going to talk about COVID. We're going to deal with the Dems here tonight. Because during COVID, Dale called me, for instance, and said, Eddie, remember when we were opening up 2 or 3 shops in each constituency still that you could still get the basic necessities? And I told Dale, the Sonia variety got to be one of the 2 because there's a variety of stuff and items that you can get here, including gas, cooking gas, and all of that. So we thank Sonia for that. So the other speakers tonight so far have spoken on national issues. Of course, it behoves me to speak on local issues pertaining to St. James North, to defend my record and to defend the record of the Barbados Labour Party over the last 3 terms. My first term, as we all know, I suffered through 63 months of part of the last decade of the Democratic Labour Party as an opposition MP. But that didn't mean that I sat down and did nothing. Of course, through the foundation of which I had the pleasure to be patron, and there's some directors of the foundation here tonight, we instituted life and work skills programs. And Christina, in fact, here, who's chairing the meeting, was the first graduate of that program. Kareem, who is the co-chair, his very close relative was also a first graduate of that program. And that program, in fact, we had 6 of those programs in the 12 years. Hundreds of people in St. James North, especially young people, got jobs within 3 months of the graduation of those programs. Sustainable jobs through that program. Last year, we combined that with a parent education program. I think that any right-thinking person in Barbados would agree that parenting is one of the biggest challenges in our society. And I think that is something that I'm totally proud of to be associated with in St. James North. I must tell you that the Democratic Labour Party government started those programs, just 1 or 2, in about 2015, 2016, after the Clarkson Foundation did that. We were the pioneer in those kind of programs. We were the first step. And of course, basic necessities, food vouchers to thousands of people throughout this constituency at Christmas and at Easter. Thousands. Don't have to publicize that. I was never one to go on social media and giving charity, but thousands of people in this constituency were beneficiaries of food vouchers. All the churches, all 18 of them, every Christmas got assistance to help the most vulnerable within their congregations. All the schools and primary schools, every sports day, every graduation, Edmund Hinkson Awards for their best students, for their best athletes. All the sporting organizations, the cricket teams, the Wim, Newberry, all of them. Earlier on when they had the netballs, the football teams, always getting assistance in many ways from me. And education, don't talk about that, because let's start talking and doing the comparisons. We all remember that in 2014, the Democratic Labour Party government made you all pay for your tertiary education at the University of the West Indies, pay tuition fees ranging between $7,000 and $10,000. If you were doing medicine, it was a lot more. If you were doing law, it was a lot more. It was the most criminal act ever committed by a government of this country post-independence. And what did I do? I made sure that 5 students who were in final year at university got to finish their tuition. Because I said you can't come this far after 2-3 years and drop out of university because you can't pay the $7,000. I gonna help you pay for that. That's what we did. Medical expenses, because you know disabilities is my forte. You want eyeglasses, you don't have the money, hearing aid, operation, pay for that. But yet, I can hear that the Democratic Labour Party candidate walking around, why heard her, saying that I was neglectful of a constituency. Well, I would like her to tell the hundreds of people who have WhatsApped me in the last 2 weeks, thanking me. Hundreds of people in this constituency thanking me for my service to this country, to my service to this constituency, to my service for people with disabilities, for conducting myself with integrity, for making Barbados proud internationally, and for everything else. Hundreds of people who have WhatsApped me, called me up to this evening, people calling me, thanking me for my service, calling my daughter Erica, tell your father thanks, and my mother. But yet they can be saying, I neglect a constituency, the BLP neglect a constituency. Well, let me tell you about neglect. As an opposition MP, Ronald Jones, who used to act as Prime Minister of this country initially before he was identified as one of the Eagle 11, told me straight, Edmund Hinkson, we are not doing anything for St. James North. Nothing. You can write hundreds of letters to us ministers. We are doing nothing for St. James North. These are the same people that come in asking you for a vote. And Ronald Jones carried it to the extreme, where a 7-year-old child with cerebral palsy, severe cerebral palsy, going to a private school funded by the Sandy Lane Trust who needed just $700 a month, $700 a semester, so to pay the difference between what Sandy Lane Trust was paying in a subsidy. And I write Ronald Jones asking his Ministry of Education to pay that, thinking that we have free education, which that party claims to have brought to Barbados, which is untrue in the first place. And Ronald Jones writes me back eventually, after I write him a second time since he didn't respond in the first 6 weeks, in a letter which I made a document of the House, you can go in and find it, that never connected a verb to the subject. Basic English that a 7-year-old knows, and there's a Minister of Education. But he's so angry writes me a letter saying he ain't paying no money for that child. That is the Democratic Labour Party. That exemplifies them in my first term as an opposition MP. No roads done. I write Michael Lastly numerous letters. Minister of Transport and Public Works does not respite to one, not one road done in St. James North in that first term. That is the negligence that they are talking about. We come in to office exactly 7 years ago, 16 roads done in this constituency. 16 roads done. Street Home Road, where Sandyfield Kelman live, being completed. And I will tell you this, 3 weeks ago, when for the first time I drove from the bottom of Rotdunda Road to the top, I shed tears. Because for 13 years, from the time I was nominated a candidate, I have been trying to get that road repaired. And I shed tears, thanks to Santia Bradshaw and her team. Ian Goodinedgell, who you just heard as Minister of Public Works in November, December 2021, sent equipment up in Sion Hill, up there above the highway, because all y'all know 5 minutes of rain in Sion Hill, you can't pass in front Braffett Road. Ian Goodinedgell, just before the elections in 2022, out there, rectified the issue of drainage and flooding up in Sion Hill, that area. Trent, you've heard that we have a plan for Trent. Yes, it has taken long, but you have heard from Santia, from William Duguid, that the building of the Civic Center above Trent will alleviate the flooding in Trent. They will make sure of that. That is what we've done for infrastructure. Westmoreland, the traffic lights, where for years I was calling for traffic lights at Westmoreland. Finally, I get Michael Lastly down, Minister of Public Works, to a town hall meeting at Westmoreland Nazarene Church. And everybody saying, well, look, this is a priority. People dying here every year at this intersection. He says he will get back to me, gets back to me the next week. My Eddie, man, these traffic lights going to cost $400,000. We ain't got that money right now. And William Dugan and Peter Phillips, who is here, going the Ministry of Public Works. After May 2018, William called me 5 o'clock in the morning, because William told you that is when we talk. 5 o'clock in the morning, he know I gonna be up, he gonna be up too. My Eddie, we find some traffic lights there, we gonna install them, the traffic lights installed in 2 weeks' time. Not one thing the Democratic Labour Party did. So for a Democratic Labour Party candidate to say that we were neglectful and the Barbados Labour Party has been neglectful of St. James North, well, I empathize with her saying that, because she only discovered St. James North 3 weeks ago. Colin, they were out in the zone, as you know. We discussed this, and they didn't know whether the zone in Aston Hall was part of your constituency or part of St. James North. Somebody had to tell them, well, you know, don't mind it in the constituency, it in the parish of St. Peter, it in the constituency of St. James North. So I empathize. She said that she lived in Weston. Again, I heard her say that. But she must have been a ghost or a phantom. Because I have spoken with people who have lived for 70 years in Weston, some of whom are here tonight, say that they never hear about this person living in Weston yet. Tell us the house where you live, the LP candidate, if you lived in Weston. And if you did live in Weston, tell us what you did for the poor people in Weston during the time you lived there. Since you are all this human rights advocate and you're this caring person, what did you do for the people of Weston? What did you do for the fisher folk in Weston for the time you claim that you lived there, whether as a ghost, phantom, or human being? What did you do for St. Albans Primary School? Why in the 15 years I was given awards on speech days and sports days at St. Albans Primary School. I never saw you around. What did you do for St. Albans Anglican Church? I never saw you there. What did you do for the Dublin Road New Testament Church of God? Did you help them at Christmas as I did? What did you do when the Minister of Home Affairs at the time, Adriel Braffett, nakedly closed the Western Fire Station, the only fire station in the north of this country, closed it exactly 8 years ago, May 2017, without telling me, but he disrespected me all the time, so don't mind, but didn't tell the community of Western he was doing it. Why didn't you tell him? But look, Mr. Attorney General, Home Affairs Minister, this is the only fire station in the north of the island. Why are you closing it down? But we have a plan for the old Western Fire Station building. The Prime Minister has agreed, as I certainly propose, that that building should be renovated and used to create wealth in entrepreneurship for the people of Western and wider St. James North community. We have a spanking new modern $3 million Western fish market. The most modern, if not one of the most modern, is the most modern fish market in the CARICOM. Ian Goodinedgell, of course, Minister of International Transport, Kurt Humphrey at first seeing it, the planning of it. Where were the Democratic Labour Party and their sports people and their operatives in the last 12 years, 3 months? The Democratic Labour Party, after I first won in February 2013, deserted this seat. They were absent, totally absent. That's one of the reasons why they then only got 600 votes in 2018 and last election after getting 2,100 in 2013. Totally absent from this constituency, re-emerging 3 weeks ago like an accident on a road looking for some place to happen. That is the Democratic Labour Party and come asking you for a vote. And, crying foul. I could not believe my ears when I heard the leader of the opposition yesterday saying that the BLP have played foul play by calling this election. Why don't know? Because in December last year, after I publicly endorsed Chad Blackman for the first time, said this is the person who I have confidence in to be my successor. The leader of the opposition said that he got a candidate, remember? That who better than Edmund Hinkson and Chad Blackman? Well, I said I wasn't running again, so it didn't matter. But he said he got a superior candidate to Edmund Hinkson and Chad Blackman. So, how the caught by surprise? But my take is that the DLP candidate would not be running down here if the Prime Minister did not make a switch, moving Chad from economic affairs to educational transformation in March of this year to February this year. Less than 3 months ago, she would not be running down here. She's an afterthought. So, I am totally shocked by the response of the opposition leader. A political party is formed for elections. And if they aren't prepared, you don't vote for them. They do not deserve your vote. And there's no problem with that if they can't run their own party. Up to yesterday or today, somebody else resigned. Huh? People from the Democratic Labour Party here now, members of the Barbados Labour Party. That is a party that needs to be totally rejected. Now, I will speak to you over a period of time in a series of meetings because the full story has to be told. And, the St. Lucians and Vincentians that the Dems hoping to appeal to because of the birth of their candidate, that is a joke. Because you would recall that in 2018, the same Democratic Labour Party went to court to prevent St. Lucians, some of whom in this crowd right now, from casting the vote. You remember that? And some polling booths had to extend the opening hours from 6 to 8 to allow them to vote because the court disagreed and said they have the right to vote under the Constitution of Barbados. But now they come out here trying to get St. Lucians to vote for them. The same St. Lucians that the Barbados Labour Party from the 1970s under Tom Adams gave citizenship to, and that when I became Minister of Home Affairs, we started the enterprise that these people have to get citizenship because they've been here long enough in accordance with the Constitution, and we gave them citizenship. Richard could speak patois better than the BLP candidate can speak. Y'all know that? Chad communicates extremely well in patois. I carry Chad in Dublin Road, and Chad speaking patois like if he's a St. Lucian. So Chad Blackman is an outstanding individual. As he has told you, as I have told you, he has walked this constituency with me since March last year, since he came back in January, called back from Geneva by Prime Minister Motley to be Minister of Economic Affairs. And we have walked this constituency many parts. And on each occasion, Chad and I out, people will say, but Chad Blackman, I hear good things about you. But Chad Blackman, you're a person that I hear will be part of the leadership of this country. Chad Blackman, you're an affable man. You're experienced. You have been in diplomacy, international affairs. You're a lawyer. You are now Minister of Economic Transformation. And we need to find out from the BLP candidate whether she agrees with her leader of the opposition that the common entrance examination should not be abolished. So, we welcome the big man. We look forward to you voting for him on the 21st to become your representative. We look forward to Chad continuing the representation of the Barbados Labour Party, effective representation. But we come here humbly to you. We are not taking it for granted. We are not taking you for granted. The big man with a big vision, with big passion. We look forward to him being in the elected parliament of this country and being part of the Mia Motley team in parliament. He's already a cabinet minister. St. James North needs someone in cabinet, not someone who can rub a rose with the leader of the opposition, bare political nuisance. Chad Blackman, the next Member of Parliament of St. James North, with your will on the 21st of May. I thank you.
Good night, Husbands Road. Good night, Husbands Road. Good night to the Garden, Mount Stanfus. Good night, St. James North. Good night to all of you. I am so heartened to be here. And this evening I want to share a few things with you so as to understand why I've come to you representing this great political institution called the Barbados Labour Party, and why on May 21 I'm asking you to go out in your numbers
and to place your ex squarely within the box for Chad Blackman as your next Member of Parliament for the constituency of St. James North. Over the course of the next few moments, I want to outline to you and share to you who I am, where I've come from, what I intend to do for you and with you. And by the grace of God, we will be victorious in Jesus' name. My life from a very young age has been dedicated to public service. And this evening, I want to share with you that for me, representation at this level, having done a number of different things that you've heard speaker after speaker after speaker tonight, said to you, my life is a dedication of service. And it is as if, everyone has their own calling. Everyone has their own mission in life. But when I look back, I realized from a very young age that I had the ability to connect with people, to talk with people, to represent their ideas and their values, not for myself or for fame or for acclaim, but for the betterment of the ordinary man. And therefore, when I look at my background, I grew up in church, Pentecostal church, Calvary Pentecostal, where I learned not just the rudiments and the tenets of Christianity, but equally, how do you serve your fellow man in humility? Because when you look at the example that Jesus left, he said, if you want to leave, you have to be the chief servant. And that is the nature of the representation I want to bring to the people of St. James North. You've heard about my humble origins, but that did not stop me from learning the ability to represent people at a wider scale. We must always understand that if you put yourself forward to people, you must understand where they're at and the aspirations that they want to be advanced. And when I look at church, being in church wasn't only about going to Sunday school every Sunday morning. And I must tell you, I had some very strict parents who, even if you didn't want to go, you had to go to church. And why is that even more so relevant now? We live in a society today where the values that has made this country, Barbados, oftentimes are being challenged in different things. And we must bring back a level of spiritual development to our people. And I want to encourage all of us here to make sure that we can, not only on Sundays, but Sunday nights, Friday nights, prayer meeting, but also in a modern way, get the role of the church and the community working hand in hand to bring back serious values to our country. This is who we are. But in addition to that, my life has been one that allowed me to see a lot of things at a very young age. As you've heard before, I was the president of the National Youth Council, serving our country's young people. I was the president of the Youth Arm in the party. I was the parish ambassador for Christ Church. Why am I saying these things to you? Because at a young age, I had a calling of serving people at the level of volunteerism. When you volunteer, you give of yourself without being paid. But it is ultimately the highest level of service to your fellow man. I went to foundation not realizing that the school's motto, omnibus disce prodest, meaning service, strive to be of service to your fellow man. And therefore, almost instinctively, it was woven into my DNA. But when you look at where I came from and the things that I've done, it allowed me to realize, Chad, at every level, you bring people along with you. It is not about the title. It is about the delivery of your mandate to people. And over the course of the next few days leading up to May 21, you're going to hear from me as to why I want to be your representative. And tonight I'm going to outline a few things that I want to do on your behalf and with you. There can be no doubt that this country has been a bedrock of development and prosperity for all of us throughout the years. But the time has come for us to step it up even further. Not just at the macro level, but at the local level. And part and parcel of what I want to offer you is a level of representation but in the context of a major development for people in the grassroots and day-to-day life. What do I mean by that? You would have heard recently about, can I have some water, please? You would have heard recently from speakers, thank you, about my level of international experience in the ILO, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, Commonwealth Secretariat, amongst many others. But what that did is that it allowed for me at a very early stage and throughout my career to realize that in order for a country to continue to prosper, all that you do at the international level must be of benefit to the ordinary man. Persons who may never walk the corridors of international diplomacy. Persons who may never be able to meet a president or a sheik or a king. But equally, you have the duty that when you're in the rooms with those persons, those people who you represent back home, it is their interest that you represent even when they're not there. And you have a duty, you have a solemn duty to ensure that you can deliver on their behalf. And over the years, I've been able to develop a lot of relationships around the world that have already benefited Barbados. And I intend, once you give me the mandate on the 21st of May, to continue that representation, not just at the constituency level, but at the national level on your behalf, using the international networks that I've developed. And why is it important? The world that we live in continues to change at a very rapid rate. And it requires of us that we do new things to meet the number of challenges that we confront. We are in a coastal area in this constituency. Fisheries, water sports, the tourism belt. And part of what we have to now do is to ensure that this entire community has at its bosom resilience in a way that we've never had to confront as a country post-independence. Why do I say this? We only need to cast our mind as far back as Beryl last year, where because of Beryl, the entire West Coast was hit. It affected not just tourism, but it affected many of the households here who have their lives and their families' lives in fisheries affected. The beach eroded, the fishermen. And what we now have to do is to build not just coastal resilience, but build capacity for persons who are in the industries that they have now the ability that if there's a storm coming or there's a downturn in tourism because of an external shock, that they too have the skills to buffer and to pivot and to go into other areas whilst we rebound. And I was proud to be part of a team that was able to craft and to get money from the international community to now rebuild the resilience of the coast through the World Bank. When I was Minister of Economic Affairs, I wasn't Member of Parliament at the time, but the idea is that it has to benefit the rest of the country. When you now look to where we now need to go in the resilience building, it isn't only the coastal zone management that has the expertise. It isn't only the World Bank that has the expertise in how to fix the coast and work with local communities. This coast is filled with persons who live here and have lived here for donkey years. And we must now marry coastal resilience and building with local knowledge and content. And I'm going to be working with all of you in the community who have the knowledge of fishing and resilience and where to rebuild the beaches and the way to do it, so that as the government builds out the capacity of the coast, you now have a homegrown solution backed by international partnership, so that way people of St. James North has a stake in what they're doing in building out their communities. But I also want to go further. What are some of the proposals that I'm looking at? I want to commit to a number of missions that will ensure that we can build out St. James North in a way that we've never done before. There is no doubt we talk about food security, and I want to have a serious conversation tonight. We look at COVID and realize that we were cut off from a number of things. But one of the things that we were cut off from, but that we need, is the security of food for our people. And this constituency is rich, not just in terms of tourism, but agriculture. I walked the length and breadth of this constituency over the last year, and I've met person after person in the agricultural industry, a lot of small farmers, young men and women, persons older as well, who have cows, pigs, chickens, vegetables, fruit, all in their small areas. But as I said before, the purpose now for us is to create the St. James North Agricultural Initiative, which allows for all, not some, but all of the persons who now ply their trade in this small way in agriculture to come together under a cooperative of St. James North for agricultural development. And what are the benefits of that? You enjoy economies of scale. Because why? You're now being able to pool your resources together. The second thing, therefore, you now have the ability to market your goods under a single brand, so that when you now go to a supermarket, you're not just going as a small player, but you're now part of a larger team enjoying good branding at a high quality that persons can now benefit from your produce. In addition to that, we have to come into the age of technology. And if you're in Husband's Road or in the Garden or Western or wherever, you should also be able to, if you want to order a piece of pork or some chicken or some vegetables, to be able to go on your phone and to see what is on offer from the cooperative, or to order it and have it delivered if you so choose. And therefore, part of it as well is to ensure that there's both a website and an application that allows for people to do this from the comforts of their homes. This is the modernization of representation at the community level in Barbados. In addition to that, you will also therefore have as part of the agricultural initiative a farmer's market where persons can go on Saturday and at the weekend after you've had a long week of work, and you can go and pick up your produce. So if you want to do it online, you can do it online. If you want to pick it up yourself, because we all know as Bajans, you like to go and fillet the vegetables and see if you like it in the way you want it. So you will have the options, but the point is, we are now going to take agriculture from level 1 to level 10, but you have to work with us to be able to do it. And I and our team will work with you to ensure that it is done. Already, since I mentioned it, a couple nights ago in Rockdundo, a number of persons have also come forward and says, we want to be part of that. Not just to offer their goods and to be part of the cooperative in that level, but there's a lot of knowledge that they have that they want to implement. And remember I said the international community and international spaces, they have a role to play. And part of it also will be that the persons in agriculture will benefit from the training of the international community so as to learn new modes and methods of agricultural development and technology. Why? It is not just about the traditional modes of farming, but you can get higher yields when you use technology. And technology must not be a barrier for persons to develop their skill set and their produce. And therefore, the government and the constituency, and as your member of parliament, I will work with you to ensure that we can now take this to the next level. Bringing it not just to supply St. James North and the rest of Barbados, but in phase 2 and 3, I envision that we now export. We have so much produce that we can export to CARICOM. Phase 4, Latin America. Phase 5, Africa. Why? This constituency has the knowledge, it has the space, it has the skill, it has the passion, and we have the collective will to ensure that we create a better life for our people. When you look at health, and I want to touch on it very briefly, because for some reason some people believe that somehow you can call me the big man and it's a joke. And somehow it is a thing to laugh at. God has blessed me to be a 6'4" man. Everybody can't be 6'4". God has blessed me with the ability to speak to you with a strong voice. God has blessed me with the ability to articulate the fact that not just that I'm a big man, but I'm prepared to also say, you know what? We have to be healthy. And I want to walk the long route with you as your member of parliament. And in order for me to do so, I also am cognizant of the fact that I need to sometimes, trim it down. Sometimes when you have a big car, you have to adjust according to the road where you're going. Not so? So therefore, I have committed publicly to ensure that we create a health initiative in St. James North, and I will be not just the champion, I want as many persons in the constituency to join me as we ensure that we have a high quality of healthy living in St. James North. So you're going to be seeing me not just canvassing in the context of election, but even beyond that, you will be seeing me walking up and down the constituency, taking some swims, of course, in beautiful beaches, jogging, yes, walking, but equally having dedicated, organized health programs. And part of that also, too, has to be the food initiative I mentioned, because the truth of it is, you can exercise, yes, but it is also what we put in our mouths that sometimes can destroy what we're trying to achieve. And therefore, I commit and recommit to you. And I want to also thank all of the persons from St. James North and around the country who've expressed their commitment in working with us in that regard. But it's not just about healthy living. Business and health go together. And this constituency is full of people who have talent for business development. And it is one of the reasons why I'm so happy that a couple days ago you would have seen on CBC, I was in the field and there's a young man, and I'm sure he's here in the crowd tonight, Corey Best, a young, talented Bajan MacGyver. That's the best way I could describe him. Who, when we went and we spoke to him, this guy can produce and put up cars, robotics, different things as if he was somewhere in a lab in MIT or wherever, right here in the garden. But what he needed and what he needs is that hand to move him up. And we've already started to put things in place that he and others can do so. And I want to say to you, Corey, we're working with you. You called me this evening and said, big man, I'm working with you too. And we are going to do this. This is not just promising what I can do. I'm already starting what I'm promising you to do. Why? Because representation ain't about long talk. It's about doing what you say you're going to do on behalf of people. I was completely shocked when one of the opponents running in this constituency had the nerve to say to you, the people of St. James North, and I want to everyone to listen to this carefully, because it's a serious matter. To say that I don't have any proposals, this is what she said, the lady said. I am now doing consultations and trying to analyze what to do. It therefore means that they are not ready at all. And you can't come to people asking for their vote, saying, I ain't got nothing to do, but I want you to give me a vote. This is not hopscotch. This is not a joke thing. You're dealing with the lives of people. You're dealing with the lives of people. And it is for that reason I was also happy to launch, as I said, the St. James North Tech Hub. And you'll hear me repeat it constantly. Why? Everyone in this crowd, everyone watching online, use technology on a daily basis, everybody. But we all use technologies in this part of the world that 99.99% of the time, they're technologies that were not created by us or conceived by us or produced by us. But it has not been lost on me. And sometimes you have to remind yourself, and this is a conversation not just to St. James North, but to the rest of Barbados. God has blessed this country with deep intellect, with people who can conceive great things. Google that we now use, its predecessor was the app called Archie, created by a Barbadian. So a lot of what we're using is now commonplace, but it is a Barbadian who conceived the idea of a search engine. Why am I making that point and distinction? We must now move in the right direction, the next level, so as to ensure that as we create a new economy for the benefit of everybody in Barbados and the Caribbean, because we have a mandate as Barbados to also develop our region, that we can now create things that the rest of the world need. And therefore, the Tech Hub is created to ensure that the young minds from an early age can create things that the rest of the world needs. We are talking about not just the future of Barbados, we are talking about Barbados of the future. And the future requires of us to be architects to design what the future will look like. Large companies around the world will tell you, in order for us to be competitive, we look at the 50, 100-year mark and we work backwards to where we want to go. This is no different, and I am encouraging all of you to join us in that as we build it out. And I want to again signal and thank the parents and the children who've come out in their numbers to support the St. James North Tech Hub. But it is also about ensuring not just Corey, but also a number of persons who are engaged in business, that they can have the opportunity to be seen and to be heard. There are a number of persons who are beauticians, persons who are into gardening, beautification, but no one knows about them on a large scale, perhaps just in their neighborhood. The point is now to create a St. James North business portal that everyone who is in a small or nano entrepreneur can have the space where you can go and find a barber, a gardener, a beautician, somebody who can DJ for your birthday party, wherever, so that everyone knows this is the talent that St. James North has. What does that do? It also allows for them not just to come to the fore, but for the rest of the country to say, okay, I need this can benefit. We have a tourism belt here. Tourists should be able, at a moment's notice, to go in a directory and be able to see what they can get within this constituency. We now have to connect and reconnect even further the two sectors. Local development, national development coming hand in hand. And the idea is that we do so in a way that allows for our people to move forward in a comprehensive and collective way. And I want to touch again very briefly on spirituality. Part of our development trajectory requires us not just to be mindful of economic prosperity, social cohesion, but it has to be underscored by spiritual values and old-time manners. When you walk through the roads, through the gap, good morning, ma'am, good morning, sir. Sometimes when you advance in societies, you see a lot of the values being eroded. And I want to encourage, again, the churches to ensure that we can work in hand as we build out St. James North and get our young people together. I was so happy on Sunday. I visited a number of churches on Sunday, which I've been doing every Sunday for the last year. And I was so happy that a number of young persons who, quote unquote, the people call them from the blocks, they joined me in service and said, big man, we come in church with you. They stood up, they clapped, they danced, they sang, they shed tears. And it just tells you that people simply need love and embracing. And I see myself as that conduit. I grew up in church. And I know the value of it. Now, have I always been a saint? No. Not at all. Yes, I know my mother can hear me. And if I was probably 12 years old, she'd say, come, let me give you a few licks for that being naughty. The point I'm making is train up a child in the way it should go, and when it gets old, it shall not what? It shall not what? Depart from it. And as we go forward, we also have to ensure that we keep those values hand in hand. St. James North, believe you me, there's a lot that I have to say over the coming days. But I want to ask you to embrace me as you have over the last year in your arms. And as you do so, be mindful and cognizant of the fact that I am here on your behalf. And even when the times might be difficult, I will be there for you. And when I get to Parliament, with the grace of God and your vote, I will ensure that every single thing that it is in the benefit of this great constituency, I will not stop until it is done. Because why? You deserve the best. And I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I look forward to hearing all of your concerns and the opportunities that you want. God bless you. Good night. Thank you very much.
Big man, big heart, big action. We going big with a black man. Big man, big vision, big passion. We going big with a black man. His talent and ability.
We just heard from the big man with big mission, big passion, and even bigger plans for this constituency. Next, we have the heart of Barbados Labour Party, a leader for our time, a voice on the world stage, and a champion for every Barbadian. She leads with courage, clarity, and conviction. She is the Prime Minister of Barbados and the political leader of the Barbados Labour Party. Make some noise for the Prime Minister of Barbados.
Together for a while now, growing stronger every day now. Feels so good and there is no doubt I will stay with you as each morning brings a sunrise.
Bring it down. Bring it down. Y'all making me feel as a Friday night, but y'all forget it's a Thursday night. And y'all see the hour? It is late. And I'm not going to keep you here very long tonight because many of you have to go to work tomorrow. But I could not leave here without saying a few words tonight to the people of Husbands Road. And I want to add to this platform where you've heard from Julian Arthur and Rommel Springer, who spoke about Chad the Man and his journey, and Rommel likened it to his journey. You heard from Sandra Husbands reminding us of why this government led from in front in order to be able to make sure that your children could go back to university and complete degrees, even while we were facing difficult times. You heard from Tony Moore what her being the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union and bringing back a union to a relationship with the Barbados Labour Party has meant for the workers of Barbados, from minimum wage to increases to improvements in terms and conditions for tourism workers and construction workers. You heard from Ian Goodenedgell, who reminded you how many flights were lost and how much more has come back under his leadership in the tourism sector, in spite of having to recover from the deep doldrums of COVID. You heard Eddie defend his record, which others in the Democratic Labour Party have tried to assault. And then you heard from the man himself, the big man. And you heard not a platform of abuse, not a platform of vitriol, not a platform of describing people in ways that bear no relationship to anything decent and honorable. You heard a man come to you to talk, not to beg you to put an extra person in parliament with him, but to ask you to give him the honor to represent you. And he stood up here just now and outlined policies that's separate from what this Barbados Labour Party government will do for you at the national level, that he will do for you in Husbands Road, in the Garden, in Mount Stanfus, in Crick Hill, in Lower Carlton, in Weston, in Sion Hill, in Upper Carlton, in Bakers, in the Wim, in Whitehall, in Millionaire Road, in Ashton Hall, in Roadview, in Batalis. Huh? He didn't come to ask you to make somebody look good or to add somebody to strengthen somebody who can't strengthen anyhow. He came to talk to you. As Sandra reminded you tonight about the importance of the bread and butter issues. And we told you when you asked for protection against the cost of living, that as far as we could do, we will do. And from shielding you from electricity costs, right back to food costs, right back to oil costs,
right back even to providing subsidies for the lowest income persons in terms of access to housing, which in the Auditor General's report they want to tell you is a reduction and a loss to a company, when the government will give back the company the money because the government is willingly and consciously providing a subsidy, knowing full well that cost of living don't only go up in the supermarket, cost of living is go up in the hardware store. What foolishness are hearing? And if you don't do it, then the people at the bottom can't then afford to get a mortgage. When others are getting mortgages, they deserve a mortgage too. I really came here tonight, and let me say before I do that, because this community has a Catholic church, St. Francis, and I want to salute Pope Leo XIV and all of the Catholics. As we transition and see them transition into new leadership. I make no mistake about telling you that Pope Francis was my hero, because he exhibited what moral strategic leadership is about. And when I called for global moral strategic leadership, I thought of him. But tonight is not the night that I will speak about morality, and I ain't ready to talk about morality over money yet. Take warning. If they want that, I come in. I came here tonight to also signal, as I signaled to the country today, that today was an emotional day for me. Because today represented the final staff agreement with the International Monetary Fund, a relationship that we had to go in, not because we wanted to. And the difference between other parties and ours is that even when in opposition, in spite of the bad reputation that the IMF had across the Caribbean, and some countries are still frightened for it, I went to Wharton in 2018 when we were launching the manifesto, and I confronted the reality of the country, knowing full well that the country could have voted against the Labour Party, and we told them honestly what we would do and where we were and how deep we were in the ground and what it would take to lift this country out, not just from the sewage on the South Coast, but from almost a decade of no salary increases, from people literally being marginalized, and not the government owed away almost $2 billion to all kinds of people up and down the length of this country and breadth of this country. And we, in spite of all of that, said this situation is so dire that it needs radical surgery. And within 1 week of coming to office, I called the head of the IMF and I said, regrettably, in fact, I was a little ashamed because even before I got to say regrettably, she says, is the sewage still running in Barbados? I was never so ashamed in my life. I called in this woman, she had a G20 conference, and the first thing she asked me about is the sewage in Barbados. I said, what? But when I told her that we were going to go on selective credit default, in other words, stop paying our debts and seek to restructure them, and that we would need to come to the IMF because we were spending 69 cents in every dollar. 69 cents in every dollar of revenue was going to pay debt, service debt, and what was left, other than paying staff, you can buy materials for the staff, from toilet paper to soap to paper to all kinds of things. Don't talk about MTW and the bitumen. You talk about roads. That's why roads were not done. And sometimes I feel that we have short memories. Because if you didn't do 30 or 40 or 50 roads
for the better part of 10 years, let's say 7 or 8, that's how much 8 times 50, Gregory, is 400. And then you put all of that on top of me, and then I turn around and had to lose almost 2.5 years from COVID. So that you start with a deficit of over 500 roads not being done in this country. And in spite of being in an IMF program, we have picked up the pace. We pay people. We increase people's pay. We do the hospital. We deal with the schools. We deal with every aspect. We build the roads. There's a sense of order in the country again. There's a normalcy where people now almost want to go back and grumble about X, Y, Z because they're frightened no more about having to keep everything together day to day. There was a time when people went to the shop in Bashal and where they used to be going to the supermarket at Poplar and Spooners Hill before, they were going by Ashton to go and beg for goods for the next day or two because they could not afford to pay for a whole week of groceries. Lest we forget. So Chad has not come here to ask you to strengthen an opposition that is non-performing. If you doubted it was non-performing, ask Ms. Dummett today. Person after person after person, St. Michael North, tell you that they ain't choose the candidate properly. In this constituency, the man that ran last time had a long WhatsApp, giving you a chapter and verse, how he get put out, how he get put one side, he get put to pasture, without even knowing it. Miss Dammit, poor thing, but I signal to you that she's a woman of courage, because a lot of people would not have stood up and spoken, and I salute her courage. Kimar Stewart, your biggest crime was talking to too many Labour Party people during the estimates. But from the time Ralph see that, Ralph throw you away. And you should have known, because he shut out. He shut out the other people of the Democratic Labour Party headquarters. I can tell you the truth. When I see people like Ms. Mapp, who helped win the 2008 government for them with the Bassad. You forget? When you see her being shut out, and Undine Whittaker, and all the rest, you begin to ask yourself, what manner of man is this leading the Democratic Labour Party? So I am ready tonight to talk about morality, because I have a speech in me for him when I'm ready. But I have come to ask you, the people of Husbands Road, to listen to this gentleman here, Chad Blackman, and understand that from the issues of roads and infrastructure, as you heard Tony say tonight, we can't do all at once, but we have been making credible progress. And in this constituency, 16 roads have been done already, and more are still coming. Water, there are areas that are still Zone A, which cannot be used, but there are others which we have freed up from Zone 1 and that are now available to people to develop. The beaches, the government has committed to restoring the beaches, not as a one-off thing here and a one-off thing there and a one-off thing there, but we have said from St. Lucie to the port has now to be built back over the next 2 years as one major project. And when we finish, we have to go to the East Coast, because when all is said and done, between the climate crisis, what it is bringing with the waves and the sargassum, in another decade, they expect that the East Coast Road will not be there or will be undermined because of the erosion. I stood up at the Church of God in this community at the end of March when the Barbados Labour Party came to celebrate its birthday, its 87th birthday. And I asked every member of parliament, and Chad has taken it to heart and introduced a program called Flame that you will hear more about. I said, look, children don't know right from wrong by osmosis. They learn right from wrong by how we raise them. And what we don't do in the house, you have to do in the church. And what we don't get in the house and the church, you have to fortify in the schools. And what we can't get in the house and the church and the schools, the rest of us in the community got to fortify and make sure that they know right from wrong. This is not about government. A government cannot come in your house and tell your child to go to Sunday school. Only you can. A government cannot come in your house and tell your child that he can't go outside to gamble or watch anybody gamble at 7 and 8 and 9 o'clock at night. A government cannot ask your child where he get that big gold chain from around his neck when you know you ain't buy it, the father ain't buy it, the godmother ain't buy it, the godfather, the grandmother, the grandfather, the auntie, nor the neighbor ain't buy it. That's not the government. And this country has to have a heart-to-heart conversation. And it will not be reduced to the awful politicization that Ralph Thorne is trying to make it as a political football. As day follows night, this is a problem that is confronting every Caribbean country, largely because the United States of America has a liberal policy to access the guns because they call it their Second Amendment rights. But when guns are easily and readily available, whereas streets you were a policeman and a fella before would have get in a fight with somebody, he might have picked up a 2x3. He might have taken a gas bottle, because I had them in them days, and break it. He might take up a rock. He might give a man an unlucky blow. But when you have a gun, the opportunity for error and the opportunity for fatal action moves in converse directions. This is not a joke. I keep telling people that if Africa was brought down by a couple, it wasn't even 100 million in them days, tens of millions of Europeans who were much less in number than the people of Africa, didn't know the terrain of Africa. There wasn't no electricity to help guide them nowhere. There wasn't no GPS. But what the Europeans had was what? Guns. And it decimated Africa. And if this country doesn't get serious and understand, I can only appeal to you, my wand. The government will do what it has to do. But in our communities, it is not the government that can take your child and send them to the Sunday school, the temple, or the mosque. It is not the government that can tell your child right from wrong. And we will work with the churches and the schools and the community groups and the sporting groups to reinforce you. And as Eddie said, he introduced parenting programs with his foundation. When I was Minister of Education, I was the first minister to start supporting Parados on stream. And in this government, we have now created parental and life coaches to go into communities, a post that never existed before. Because we recognize that we need to be able to uplift the skills of everyone. So I haven't come here tonight for a long speech, my friends. I get a little taste. Come back Saturday up in Sand Hill. I could talk late then. Because there ain't no limit under the electoral laws. And those of you who are going to church Sunday morning will still be able to get up. But I have come to ask you to vote for Chad Blackman and to strengthen your representation and to ensure that you have a man who sees you and hears you, who understands what you need, not just in terms of infrastructure, but in terms of opportunities for your family, opportunities for young people, the uplifting of skills, the linking of people to the trust loans program and to fund access so they can get small businesses up and running off of the ground. I have come to ask you to help yourself, because in Chad Blackman, I know, not a guess, I know you will have a representative equal to the task. And when the time comes on the 21st of May, I repeat it because we take things for granted. There are a lot of first-time voters. There are a lot of young voters. Do not touch the line. When you go to vote for Chad Blackman, put your X right there in the box. You know how to put an X in the box without touching the line, because we don't play enough games. Enough X and O's when you're at primary school. And I ask you to encourage your neighbor. This notion, oh, this is a Barbados Labour Party seat, and people are going to come, oh, I'm not in that. No ballot box starts with votes in it. And therefore, this is an expression of your confidence and your expectations as to what you expect him to deliver for you in this thing called a social contract, which he will have with you once you elect him to the House of Assembly. And I say to you tonight, my friends, therefore, that do not be distracted about strengthening another man's hand. You can strengthen another man's hand and weaken your pocket again if they cannot even keep order in George Street. If they cannot bring to you any recent example. Between 2008 and 2018, they failed, and you ended up paying the price. Between 1986 and 94, they failed, and you ended up paying the price. Good Lord, they fail you once, they fail you twice. You can let them fail you a third time? That's what I talked about, 86 to 94. So I say to you tonight, please, encourage all in your household to come out. Encourage those who are young to remember, do not touch the line when you put in that X. And when you get there, see Chad Blackman like if you're seeing a big, big ball, and put the X in there. Recognizing that with that, you cement a partnership of representation that will make your life better. You, the people of Husbands Road and the Garden and surrounding areas, I say to you, thank you for allowing us to be in your community so late. I apologize for the lateness of the night, but I know that the message was rich and strong, and that it will cause you to remember that when the time comes, vote Chad Blackman, vote Barbados Labour Party, vote for yourself, or as the Workers' Union has said, bet who bet you. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Madam PM. Tonight would have been possible without a number of persons. Thank you to Sonia and Miss Parker. A special thanks to the members of the community who came out tonight. The speakers, Dr. Amal Springer, Mr. Julian Arthur, Senator Gregory Nichols, MP Tony Moore, MP Sandra Husbands, MP Ian Gooding, and Mr. Edmund Hickson, candidate Chad Blackman, and Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley. Our next meeting is going to be on Saturday in Sion Hill at 7:30. Looking forward to seeing you there. Good night and God bless.
Big heart, big action. We going big with Chad Blackman. Big man, big vision, big passion. We going big with Chad Blackman. His talent and ability beyond his years maturity. With the whole of the love for this country, you don't know Chad Blackman is ready. action. We going big with Chad Blackman. We going big. We going big. We going big. Go big or go home. Big man, big heart, big action.